Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 4 of 40k Fight Club. Today's week's episode is entitled The Flat Earth Meta. I am Innes Wilson. I am joined by Anthony Violence Vanilla and also Nathan No Subtitle. Today, we are going to be talking about all of the good events that have happened over the last weekend, as well as the general state of the meta discussion. We're going to be doing a two-part episode. Part 1 will be our breakdown of the stats of the weekend and also the events. And then part 2, which for now is free to everybody, but will eventually be going subscriber only. We'll be covering our meta breakdown and also listener questions from the Best in Tabletop Network Discord. How are you guys doing? How are your weekends been?
I had a pretty great weekend. This was a mostly chill one. This was the calm before the storm. I'm going to Cherokee this week, so we took some time to relax, play the new Total War game, get beat up a bunch in that because that game plays way different than the last one, and mostly relax. Got to spend some quality girlfriend time. It was good stuff.
Good. What'd you start with? What was your first faction for Total War?
I started with Slaanesh and then was like, oh, I need to know how to play the game to play the Fragile Army. So then I played Khorne and just violenced people with Scarbrand for like a good bit to learn the mechanics, because you can just destroy whole armies with just him. Highly recommend that campaign. It's a whole bunch of fun. And then I went back to playing Slaanesh again once I understood how the game worked.
Good.
Nice. Yeah, I did mostly the same as Anthony. I played Total War 3 and kind of just took it easy. I am not going to Cherokee. I am instead going to sit here and write articles for Frontline about Cherokee as it happens instead. So if you guys want to read that coverage, it'll be there that weekend.
Well, somebody's got to be the man in the chair, Nathan, and we all really appreciate you doing the work you do.
He does the work.
Jesus. And I started and made a terrible decision and started with the Undivided Demon Prince.
Oh, that one's real hard.
And I went south and I was like, why are there 420 stacks of Empire dudes just crawling up my southern cities? And then I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh. And then I switched to Cathay and had a much better time.
There you go.
There's something a little simpler about just needing to defend 3 heavily garrisoned cities on one side. It's a lot simpler, especially with cannons.
Yeah, cannons help.
I heavily can't relate. I have never played a Total War game in my life, and I don't intend to start. I know. Please don't judge me for that. I don't play any games that came out after 2012 at this rate. I play League of Legends and XCOM and Civ 5. That's all I got.
Come on, bro.
I know. I'm embarrassed for myself, but it's just the way of things. As for myself, I was at a GT this weekend. I was at Voidhammer in Scotland. Unsurprisingly, we will be covering that in the results breakdown, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but I did win, which was nice. Very happy with that. Took Gene Circles down. Other than that, I'm prepping for GT in 2 weeks, doing a bunch of painting for that because I can't leave well enough alone when I hate GSC. All right, guys, we are going to jump straight into the themes of the week. So this is the main topics for today's episode. Does somebody want to run us through those for me, please?
Yeah, I can jump on that. So a couple of things that we'll be covering this week include Custodes and Tau. Alternatively, Tau and Custodes. Also Tau and Custodes. Those are our themes this week, because that's what is the meta now. Welcome to it. There are 2 armies, and then sometimes you get to play a third one.
Yeah, that's broadly been my experience. Custodes, Tau, Tau, Custodes, Tau, Tau, Custodes, Tau. And sometimes it's different Custodes and different Tau. Because sometimes it's not Emperor's Chosen, it's Shadowkeepers.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes,
once in a while, there's a Crusher.
Occasionally you play Crusher. Maybe you'll play a Mad Lad on a bad army in round 1. Yeah, it's real gamer hours out there, guys.
Yeah.
If you're heading to a GT anytime soon, expect you playing against a lot of Tau and Custodes. There are still some armies putting up good results. We had GT wins from a few other armies this weekend. Gene Circles took down 2. We had a Crusher win, I think.
I think that's true.
We had a Harlequins win. I remember that one.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah, we had a Harlequins win and an Advec win, were the interesting ones this week as well as GSC. Yeah, Crusher win was last weekend.
We had a Grey Knights one as well. Mr. Stuart Trainer down in Australia.
Yeah. So
we've got 2 GSC wins.
2 GSC wins, yeah. So we've got some good games to go through. But for now, we're going to start by going into the stats from the weekend, so we can show you just exactly how interesting the meta's gotten, and we'll start to elaborate on why we called the episode Flat Earth Meta.
Mm-hmm. So for the weekend, before we get in too deep, we'll just talk about faction representation. So at the top, we have Custodes, who make up about 12% of all of the factions that were played this weekend, followed closely behind by Tau at 8%, then Orcs at 7%. There were a lot of Orcs played this weekend. Then you have Tyranids, Necrons, and Drukhari kind of trailing out for the rest of the top 6, with Tyranids and Necrons having the same representation there. Necrons actually did surprisingly well. We'll talk about that just a little bit later. It is just 1 week of data, but it does definitely say that maybe there's something there, maybe, but probably not. We'll see. We'll find out. 1 week of data is like very spurious, right? But for win rates, what we're really looking at when we look at the overall numbers, I guess first I should probably talk about top 10s and top 4s, since that's a little bit more trendy and less specific. We have Custodes, who took 29 top 10 slots, 12 top 4s, and won 4 events.
So
that means
for clarification, how many top 10 slots were there total?
so there were 9 events, so there were 90. So they took up a third of them.
So a third. And what was their overall representation?
13%, 12% for this weekend.
Roughly 2.5 times overrepresented in top 10s.
Yeah. Oh, and they also made it that many percent into top 4 as well. So they had about 33% both at top 10 and top 4.
So they're converting roughly 2.5 times as many players, and then they're converting about the same amount to top 4. That's good. It's healthy.
100% healthy. And then Tao's not that far behind. Well, they are significantly far behind. They had 12 top 10s, which is about 13%. And then they had 5 top 4s, which is still about 13%, closer to 14. So they're converting.
And that's off of what representation again?
8%. So they are
about
overrepresented.
Yeah.
It's not too much overrepresentation. Like 1 to 1.5 isn't like terrible.
Yeah, you take that as variance, right? It's when that starts happening consistently that it becomes a problem. Custodes, we can just that's a problem.
2.5 to 3 times your meta representation starts to just be kind of questionable, right? And then behind them for top 10s, we have Necrons, who had 6 and 1 top 4, Tyranids with 5 and 1, and then Drukhari with 4 and 2. The Drukhari have fallen quite a ways for their meta representation, and then also their percentage of top 10s since their heydays of 4 weeks ago.
Nobody minds.
Look at how they massacred my boy.
Take a year off. It's okay.
No.
But what we also have, so here are the real stats for this weekend, aside from just meta representation and over-representation data, which also kind of further solidifies that we kind of have a problem. Custodes have a 73% win rate for this weekend, and Tau Empire are just slightly behind at 70.6% for the weekend. If you want to count the 2 Harlequins players, they together had a 70% win rate, but we're not going to count that because it's less than 10
is
players.
That with or without the mirror?
That's with mirror removed. So
okay.
I don't.
So when playing against not Custodes armies, Custodes win 73% of the games. When playing against not Tau armies, Tau win 70% of the games.
Yeah, so like 3 out of 4 of the games that they play, they basically win. We'll talk a little bit about some of the faction v faction data and whether there are some good or bad matchups for both factions, and we'll leave that for later. Otherwise, for win rate,
I'm going to just echo Curie in chat. Sob, yeah, that roughly sums up my general feelings right now.
This data is, I'm just going to say it, real bad. We're talking probably like extended Iron Hands level of bad for win rates, except now there are 2 Iron Hands level factions just beating the junk out of each other in tournaments.
Prepare for one of them, for example. You have to try and prepare for both. Very different armies. That sounds easy, and I think most factions can do.
Look, on the upshot, you can prepare for them similarly, in that you can prepare to play against an army that's probably better than yours. So that's pretty cool.
I have often found that you can prepare to lose as many games as you want.
Yeah.
It's not the difficult part of 40k.
You can just rock up and drop them, dude.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say is, like, a lot of people have been drawing parallels to when Drukhari entered the meta with the Liquefier problem, which was that Liquefiers benefited from Dark Technomancers, in case anybody doesn't remember that stage. And the thing I will say is that, in my opinion, Drukhari hit a soft meta. Like most of the books that had been released were kind of uneven in tempo, except for Dark Angels, who came out right before them, who were a solid choice. So Drukhari came into a much softer meta than Tau and Custodes did. Tau and Custodes came in to two other factions that were in the mid 60s and several factions that were in the mid 50s and annihilated the two factions that were in the top 60s. Like, we're not even talking like a little bit.
Flattened
Yeah.
it, maybe?
Yeah, they definitely flattened their opposition. So you see Drukhari this last weekend with a 50% win rate. So obviously, all we needed this whole time to balance Drukhari was Custodes and Tau.
Yeah.
And then
some
our
nerfs.
was 4 nerfs and 2 better armies to come out.
Yeah, and their poor Tyranids, 44% win rate this weekend, which is that is a huge drop. I know somebody out there.
There's a bit of crusher for my event next weekend.
Yeah, that might have been a bit rambunctious.
But I really wanted to use my team of Karons, man.
I understand.
You took 2.
I understand.
1, I'm not mental.
Oh.
WTC terrain, I can hide 1.
I thought that was getting crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, playing big bugs is fun, right? Running at somebody screaming while yelling, "I'm going to eat you," is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Fully agree. Unfortunately, what's not fun is playing against them. So let's have a look at those stats then, shall we? How are people doing into the Golden Boys and the Communist Fish?
So we're gonna pop over my fun faction v faction data, and we'll talk about some sub faction data in a little bit as well, because I'm sure everybody's really excited to hear about our newly tracked sub faction data. Thanks, Kiri. That we're tracking from everywhere. It'll be a lot of fun, I promise. So this faction v faction data is from the beginning of February, so basically post LVO. For Custodes, they have one bad matchup. They have a 42% win rate into Gene Stealer Cult, and that's basically and they have a 0% win rate into Harlequins in like the one matchup they played that they lost.
Harlequins OP, we should nerf them immediately before the book comes out.
Stop.
They've already been nerfed by being removed from their own codex and put into a different one.
They did also just lose all of their sub factions. So.
Yeah. Come on, we got 3 now. Leave me alone.
It's like a solid drop of like from 5 to 3. It's okay. It'll be fine. But yeah, it's really just Gene Stealer Cult, and I'm sure Innes can tell us a little bit about how that matchup works and why Gene Stealer Cult actually have a good matchup there.
Stick around for part 2. We'll tell you all about it.
Mm-hmm. And then for Tau, they have a couple bad matchups. So Tau have bad matchups essentially into Custodes, into Sisters, into Chaos, and also into Harlequins with another 0% win rate.
So unless people have been playing like a lot of Disciples of Be'lakor, I'm surprised. Just for anybody who is catching up with the chat, Martin, what you have missed is we have found that the win rate for Custodes and Tau this weekend, going back to February, Nathan, or just this weekend?
That's going back to February.
Going back to February. The win rates for these factions are both over 70%.
Oh, the over 70 is for this weekend.
Oh, sorry. So for this weekend, both Custodes and Tau had over a 70% win rate.
Yes.
Yay.
We're all having fun out here, guys.
I mean, we can talk about the win rates really quickly for the whole month. What
is it going back?
So Custodes are at a 70% when you include all of February. Tau, which includes their free book, is 65.5.
So Tau with the previous, which is probably like 4 games of data because who was playing Tau pre-book.
Yeah.
But their new book is smooth enough to carry 65% overall win rate.
And the other caveat that I want to add is that some events still aren't running the new Tau rules in their events. So there's at least one event that was in Sweden that had a cutoff that precluded it, and then I believe also the London event precluded.
So the Viking games in Sweden didn't use Tau, and neither did the London Open, which was the biggest event of the weekend.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So those 2 events basically had no Tau players in them, and so we have only partial data again for this week for Tau. But if we're just basing it off partial data, we're going to have a lot of fun moving forwards. I hope you're all excited.
I am super looking forward to getting rail whatever off the board every turn. Yeah, it's great.
Rail gun, rail rifle, rail something.
Just railed generally.
Just railed, getting railed.
But Sisters players, be real excited. You have a positive win rate into at least one top tier faction right now.
Well,
That's
there's
good.
only
I think
two, so
Sisters are
that's
underrated at the moment, so that's a good sign.
yeah.
All right. So I did talk a little bit about how Tyranids and Drukhari have kind of fallen off a steep cliff. When you include the whole month of data, both factions are doing a little bit better when you don't just include this last weekend, with Drukhari sitting at around a 55, which is actually a lot healthier, just generally speaking. We'll see how that changes as hopefully some changes come in for Tau and Custodes. Custodes got some of their rules FAQ'd today, so you should go check them out. Praetorian Plate is now a heroic intervention, as it always should have been. Come at me. I don't
And there's
care.
now no way to leave a permanent ambush marker on the board, which if you were doing, one, you're my hero, and two, how did anyone let you do that? Like, genuinely, it's amazing, but why?
Yeah, what a jerk.
I wish I'd done that. That'd have made all my games so much easier.
Yeah, or Shadowkeeper stacking was actually my favorite one of those. I didn't even consider that you could do that.
I've definitely asked opponents, and they went like, no, and I'm like, wow, maybe you could have been screwing me over way
Yeah, you could have just been doing that.
Imagine getting like Praetorian plated on by a Shadowkeeper's guy. It's just like, nah, just take 2 off, man. It's okay.
Yeah,
Don't worry
unlucky,
about it.
sorry. Yeah.
But I also want to say I told you so, because Gene Stealer Colts did really good this weekend, and I've been saying that Gene Stealer Colts are good for like a while now. Nobody listens to me.
Nobody listens to anybody but Jesus Cult because like 4 people on the planet know how to play them. So
Yeah, it is.
That's true.
It's a pretty niche market on those boys.
When your base army costs more than 2 other armies stapled together, you've got a problem.
yeah, don't remind me. I priced up a Tau army, and it was cheaper than the 800 points I added to my Gene Stealer Cult for the new book.
Oh,
So then what I
gross.
really wanted to talk about is some of our sub-faction data, because I think this is somewhat interesting because it tells us how some of these factions and where they're really gelling around. Like what are we looking
Can
at?
I shout out my favorite stat on subfaction data? Could you tell us a little bit about the Tyranid subfaction data stats?
Oh, I can start with Tyranids because that makes me scroll all the way to the bottom of my
Yes,
sheet.
that's exactly what I want. I want to make Nathan
So there
suffer
were-
being an Eldar player.
There
Yeah.
were 47 tracked lists, and 42 of them were Leviathan. It's most
Nice.
of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Tell me a faction has a supplement without telling me that they have one supplement.
In genuine fairness for that, though, there's no reason to play anything else with Crusher, and Crusher's kind of all we're seeing for Pyramids.
Yeah.
So
'Cause it
if
has
you
a
were, if there was,
supplement.
yeah, but if there was real, like if you were still playing without Crusher, there's merit for Kronos and Kraken. There just isn't with Crusher. There's not a lot of merit, but there is merit. Like
Oh,
you could
okay.
justify playing fast Demas.
That's fair.
I will say it's basically one of each of the other ones, which is
Kronos,
blank.
Kraken, and
Kronos,
probably
Kraken,
one
and
guy who played
Behemoth.
Gorgon to be mental.
Probably.
That's a hero play. Playing Gorgon in current year.
You
When
could
we-
technically play Behemoth to get access to the 1 CP 2+2 mortal wound stratagem to get 7 mortal wounds out of your breaking through Crusher model. That's
yeah.
the hero play I want to see.
That's awesome.
Pick up a half of those Emperor's Chosen Bite Captains, just a chunk of them, you know?
Yeah.
Which, if we want to talk about it, there were 114 Custodes with their primary faction listed. 86 of them played Emperor's Chosen. And some quick math here says
70
that,
something percent.
yeah, that sounds right. We have basically the second most is Shadowkeepers at 14, so a little bit under 10%. And
Yep.
then there are some people who apparently play no sub faction, and I don't like any of you because you need to list that so I can track it, please.
Maybe they're playing like Mono Sisters of Silence.
That's true. In which case, kudos to you for playing just Sisters of Silence.
Can you do that?
Yes,
Yeah.
there are. You can run up to 4 HQs. The troops are troops, and then you can run rhinos in the 3 squads.
Mhm.
The other 2 squads. You can run full Sisters. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it.
You
Don't you
do this.
need a custode squad for each sister squad?
No,
Only in mixed detachments.
Oh, so if you take mono sisters, you could just got it.
So yeah, if you're out there playing Mono Sisters, hit us up. We'd love to see your army.
Yeah,
on the
what a
table
hero.
And know what your win rate is, because we will track your specific win rate secondary, and we will like announce that every couple of weeks on this.
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
playing
we
Mono
will-
Sisters of Silence, we will shout you out 100% hands.
Yeah, reach out, let us know.
For Gene Stealer Cult, we're looking at about half of people playing Twisted Helix, which I think is probably an easy assumption to make.
Yeah, that makes
It's
sense.
the most straightforward,
Yeah.
provides flat buffs, and just makes melee trading a lot easier.
Yeah, Helix is the easy choice. There are a lot of janky stuff you can do with mirror cults, but on the face of it, Twisted Helix is the simple option that you get strength 5 and then everything just becomes easier. And I do not dislike that.
Then we're for Tower about evenly split between 3 different factions right now, with 21 as Farsight, 28 as Tau Sept, and then 12 as Borkan being the 3 most popular, which to me
Interesting.
also just makes sense. A lot of people who placed well over the last couple of weeks have played Tau Sept. I think that makes up most of the top 4s that we've seen so far from Tau. Since the wound bonuses and then also being able to bring in 2 characters who are reasonably good at doing their jobs.
Yeah, I think Tower are a much more interesting book internally speaking than Custodes. They have like multiple factions that are like cooler, interesting, and
Yeah, there's very solid justification over all 3 of the choices.
yeah, for
Farsight
sure.
gets you a lot of burst damage. Tau is very consistent, and Borkan is Custodes Mirror Breaker, I suppose. I actually wonder if we can at some point get to the stats on what the win rate for Borkan versus Custodes.
I think Borkan's also super good into the mirror, isn't it? Because reducing the strength of the weaponry is really good.
The range boost can help too.
Yeah,
the range boost. Yeah, the ignoring numbers doesn't do as much.
No.
So it could swing that way. You also just don't get as many wounds through from like your broadside and stuff like that.
Right, because you're not hitting or wounding as frequently. That makes sense.
I can tell you the win rates for the individual Tau subfactions and for the other subfactions broadly. Farsight Enclaves based on our data. So this is historical data, so it includes all of February, so it's not just this. But Farsight's at about 62, Tau's at 66, and then Borkan's at 60.
So fairly even within variance there, yeah.
So the internal balance of that book, I think, is actually really well done. I actually think the Tau book is really interesting internally, but its external balance is completely out of whack.
Yeah, absolutely, completely.
Yep.
There's a lot of cool synergies, a lot of options you can make. There's very few straight up bad units that aren't the units that you would kind of expect to be bad, like the random out of place flyers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everything else seems to have a decent purpose. There's just some really obvious choices that overshadow the rest because, well, why wouldn't you while they're this pushed?
Even some of the more like random looking stuff, like a Ghost Kill, is actually like pretty good. Like,
yeah, Ghost Kill's won GT this weekend.
Yep.
The German one. So yeah,
and then we also even for Anthony we track RSRs and multi triple patrols. Well, we don't track RSR specifically, but we track the 3 factions that are used in Drukhari. And I'm sure you can guess which one is the most popular, which is Cabal of the Blackheart, Cult of Strife, and Artists of Flesh.
Yep.
With Cabal of the Blackheart, Cult of Strife, and Prophets of Flesh slightly
second.
behind.
Yeah.
And then Cabal of Blackheart and just Artists of Flesh in third.
Oh, I guess that makes some. There are people there are people out there just bringing thick city still. Just like I'm doing it. It's fine. No
well, I've bought these Talos. I'm going to.
I'm going to use them at least once. I'm going to be really disappointed and confused why everyone said this was so good now, but I'm gonna bring them.
No, they're playing in their garage, and they're just hoping their opponents haven't downloaded data slates.
I feel like those people don't end up in Nathan's stats, but I could be wrong.
Hey man,
they do.
We think all sorts.
Yeah,
there's other people out there playing Obsidian Rose and Red Grief, man. Like
that's true.
We get all sorts.
I bet I can find that person. I'm not going to look right now, but we do.
Because it's that obvious.
We track all of it. At this point, like if you list your subfactions, we'll track it and we'll get into this spreadsheet basically from now on because Kiri is amazing at harvesting data from BCP, a skill that I didn't think anybody had. Because BCP
skill that I didn't think anybody would want, but frankly, props.
It's true.
Yeah.
So really, the takeaway here, guys, for listeners and gals, is that we're in kind of a rough spot, but we do have Eldar coming in on the table next, essentially, which if the community actually is accurately calling power for the first time in its existence, will rebalance the meta again. So we'll have a second rebalancing so close to the other rebalancing. But we'll see those rules on Saturday this week, when in theory the NDA drops and we get all of our fun reviews from all the different YouTube people who review books.
I have faith in the community's ability to judge power. Like I don't like I have faith in the Lord above. Like I don't have any faith in that they're gonna get this correct.
I have faith that they'll overreact to the wrong things, but that they will find one or two things that are genuinely ridiculous.
Yeah.
The community is really good at not finding average power, but sometimes the community just like finds a combo and you're like, oh my god, I didn't even think of that. And you just find it in like this Reddit comment and you're like,
Oh
what
no.
the hell?
Yeah,
It's amazing. I love those guys.
Yeah. Someone pointing out today that the avatar can benefit from the entire spell lore was like what?
Yeah. You thought Talos were good. Wait till they're 4-up, 5-up, half damage.
Yeah, half damage. Oh.
Now, one thing to remember for you kids at home, half damage is worse than -1 damage, specifically against things that are +1 damage, damage 1, because your halving happens before the damage or before the
That is
damage
true.
increase. So there are times where it is worse. If White Scars ever come back, Celestine takes 1 damage and Morvenn Vahl takes 2 from an assault
That's
intercessor.
true.
It is really weird. So watch out for that with your half damage guys as they start to pop back into the meta.
Yep.
But Nathan, do you have any closing thoughts on the stats there?
I have one last closing thought. I'm going to echo something that Kiri is saying in chat. Upload your lists, you goobers. Because, to be honest, also don't upload them as images. Please don't. I need to be able to interpret your lists, and we need to be able to pull interesting data out of it. But also, the last one is just relax. We'll see how things come out.
Just for you, I've gone and changed my faction on BCP from Elysian Drop Troops to Highfleet Leviathan.
Why? Why are you this way? Why are you the way that you are? Why was
So
that in
many.
the first place?
That's not an answerable question in a 2-hour-long podcast. We need several parts. That might be the focus of just a podcast, like a whole show.
Yeah,
about
like
Lance
if
and
we ever
his
launch
lineage.
a therapy podcast for Best in Tabletop Network people, it's a long episode.
Yeah, I feel like Colin would be well suited for that. Really sit down and unpack why that Innis is the way that he is.
I don't know if Make Colin Worse is the kind of episodes we want to be showing on the net. Oh, okay, thank you very much, Nathan. It's always super interesting to hear the stats. The headline topic of 70.
No.
73%.
It's too much. It's too high. It's not okay. It's 16%. More than it's like 20% too high. Don't like it.
Like 24%.
There are
too high.
entire factions that don't have a combined win rate that high.
Yep.
Mostly Astra Militarum and somebody else. You'd have to pick one other.
Astra Militarum and Scions.
Astra Militarum and current Asuyani, maybe. That might
Yeah,
be
well, that's about to change.
Current Craft Worlds.
Imagine
No
playing
bueno.
current Craft Worlds like I did round 1 of a GT.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, that is going to wrap it up for the stats section. We are now going to jump on to the lists of the week. So we're going to be going through the top lists from each of the events that happened this weekend. Because we have, as Nathan said earlier, we have 9 events that hit GT stars. We're only going to be going through the top ones of this weekend. But we may... so if we have a busy week like this, it's just kind of the thing we're going to do. What I will say is we're at the halfway point of part 1 of the show. If you're enjoying it, chuck us a like on YouTube, hit the subscribe button if you want to catch the notifications for when we're coming live again. And if you're really enjoying the show and want to support us, or you want to be able to stick around for part 2 once we do go behind the subscriber wall in a couple of episodes, you can subscribe to patreon.com/bestintabletop. It's $10 a month, gets you access to the Discord. It is phenomenal. Love it. I've had some really good list advice there that has made me a better player. And I'm sure everybody else can echo that. We had some really good moments from the Discord this week. A Custodes player who switched to them last minute and then won an event off the back of having never played them before. It was quite impressive, the amount of advice he got, and then just completely delivered on it. Smashed his goals. It was really good to see.
Yeah, and his second event in 3 years?
Yeah, his second event in 3 years, and he took a bunch of advice from the chat and went, yeah, cool, I just rolled it. It was great.
Yep.
Nice.
And maybe you'll get recruited for a podcast. It's a possibility.
I can confirm that you can just get yoinked into a podcast, as I am sitting here having had that happen.
Can confirm one day.
That is a universal experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so results of the week. Let us go into the first big event of the week. So the first major event of the week, and I believe one of only 2 majors we had, was the London Open, which was held in, unsurprisingly, London, England. which had 98 players, 5 rounds, and then the top 2 played a final round, which was won by Manny Chima's Custodes.
Yes, sir.
So the list itself,
I've got to
broad
put up here,
strokes.
Ennis.
Yep, if you want to jump through it. Broad strokes, it's bikes and Achilles, but we'll go through it a bit more depth.
Yep, it's 3x3 bikes, 3x3 Achilles. One of them has Eternal Penitent and upgraded guns. He's got 2 units of Custodian Guard, Bike Captain, Trajan. That's it. Oh, and an Inquisitor, which I imagine is there for secondary stuff. It's pretty good in the mirror.
Yeah, the Inquisitor's cool tech. It loses you access to Aboard the Witch, but I mean, do you really mind at the moment? Grey Knights are not an army you're worried about anyway. You could beat them with any secondary.
I legitimately could see a world where T-Suns could be problematic into the upper levels, but
into Emperor's Chosen, really?
It's like half of 30 mortals is still 15, and that kills a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, I've been on the.
I feel like that's one of those matchups that you have a squad of Sisters of Silence for, though, right? Like you just dump a squad of Sisters of Silence, and you blank a phase.
Maybe.
Well, he has a squad of Sisters of Silence, so I bring it up.
Yeah, that's fair. He does. That fairness, that would work here. Yeah, he's probably not super worried about it.
But there's also just aspect of, does having Aboard the Witch actually shore up your matchup against them that much?
I don't think it's that big of a deal there. If anything, the deny is almost better.
So
mental interrogation is just that good.
Yeah, so I don't know. I took it like twice this weekend and scored 12 points in 2 games, so maybe I'm just bad, but I did not like that secondary. Yeah, so it's not a super. I don't want to say it's not a super interesting list, but it is very much a different aspect. Not running anything like the long range shooting from the Achilles, instead of the Gladiuses. That's the ones.
Oh, that.
So there's no long range shooting. This is all very close range. It's just 9 missile launchers and some dreadnoughts. And that's it for like ranged punch. It's very much leaning in on the I'm going to be here.
No Wardens is interesting. No Bodyguard feels like a really weird choice.
Wardens are, I don't know, I feel like they're kind of 50-50 on whether you see them in lists because they are good and Bodyguard is fine, but do you really need it? Like, they're more expensive. They take up a troop slot. Yeah, they give you Bodyguard hold, but your characters
they do such crazy. They're so
good. Characters are resilient anyway, that if they get like shot by a couple of guns, they're probably not going to die. And then you can probably just character protect them anyway. With a squad of guard, you have to take anyway. That's kind of where I fall on the Wardens.
They pick up an extra attack and they have an innate feel no pain, which is really like unique resources. Obviously, also being able to bodyguard and do the like, I hold this objective. If you touch it, I'll 6-inch heroic you. If you don't touch it, okay.
Yeah, no, I get that. There is definitely an aspect of it. It gives you a different game plan, but I don't necessarily think you have to say that that's a better game plan because what Manny has instead is a full extra dreadnought.
Yep, he's got an extra.
So that's kind of like you make that choice there. Do you want bodyguard holding and flexibility on defensive, or do you just want to go for the violence? And I feel like you should be advocating for the violence here. And I'm kind of disappointed you're not.
Normally, I would be on that train, but I feel like the Wardens enable violence in a different way. I think this is a lot easier of a game plan to have when Tau aren't legal at your event.
That is fair, yeah.
Yeah.
That is the notable London Open. Tau were not in play. The finals of this event was Manny versus David Gaylord, who you may remember from the top 8 of LVO, playing a High Fleet Leviathan Crusher Stampede list. We're not going to run through it all, but broadly, no Demachaerons, instead Hierodals and Harpies.
Yep.
And Double Tyrant, which is
Double Tyrant. Yep.
Super cool list. I didn't steal it or something very similar to it. Totally look away.
I would never.
So yeah, that was Manny Chima's win at the London Open. Emperor's Chosen putting in good results still. I don't think anybody's surprised there. It will be interesting to see where Manny takes his list in the advent of Tau. I know he is a big Tau player from the before times, and I would not be surprised to see him running the pure distillation of whatever the most spammable Tau unit is. That seems like a thing he would do.
Yeah, whatever you can take the most of.
Running 9 broadsides, look no further. Or I could see him running like 27 crisis suits with AFP. Like that's the kind of thing I could see.
Just a reprise of earlier lists from Manny, from what I've heard in the background.
Yeah, that's very much a thing he has run in previous editions. I had the pleasure of playing against 9 of Manny's broadsides with my 5 repulsors list back when repulsors were troops or just dedicated transports that you could run Gullwyn with. This is good times. I just got shut off the board. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, the second biggest event of the weekend was, I'm almost hesitant to say the name because I don't know how these Germans are naming their tournaments. But the previous event was on Beast Specialist Pairings. This one is on Tourney Keeper. If you go to the previous tournaments tab, you should be able to find G.I.M.P.B.O.T as a tournament. And I'm not going to say what that spells because that's how it was written and that's how I'm delivering it.
Okay, that's fair.
You can say it aloud if you want, Anthony, but I am not using my swear on that one.
I mean, that's not a swear. That's just the thing some
feels
people
like
are
one.
into.
It feels like
It's GimpBot, bro. It's not that big a deal. It's fine.
Don't kink shame on our podcast, Innes.
Jesus.
What if I want to?
What if that's his kink? Is kink shaming?
Well, he can't kink shame on the kink. Never mind.
I would prefer that no one expressed their kink on the podcast, if that's cool. Actually, we should make that a broad strokes rule.
I think that's actually in the network style guides is no kinking on the show.
Fair enough.
Sense.
So
we'll make sure not to
apologies.
say that again.
Yeah.
So this was won by someone who is only described as the powerful emo on Tourney Keeper, which I have a lot of respect for. You don't have to use your real name on Tourney Keeper. It's great. Nobody does.
That's hilarious.
This is a Tau Borkan list, so putting in some numbers for those. We are running a commander in Enforcer Battlesuit with the standard, like the punchy stuff, Enforcer with the Thermotron. An Ethereal, Strike Team, 2 Ghost Keels with the Cyclic Iron Rakers, so that's some really good backfill coverage. We have got a Riptide with Iron Accelerator, which is making very good use of that Borkan stratagem to just punch through invulnerable saves.
Yeah.
We've got Cold Star, we've got, and then this is the fun bit. We've got a 5-man Crisis Battlesuit squad, and then with an Airbursting Fragmentation Blaster and a Cyclic Iron Blaster and a Plasma Blackflove, just taking the full grab bag of all 3. And then 3 squads of 2 Bodyguard, all with 2 Airbursts and a Shield Generator and 2 Shield Drones. Just
get lit up.
Plus 4-inch range on that just doesn't sound fun. And then a squad of stealth battlesuits, just 2 squads of stealth battlesuits for some scoring and standing in places. But it's just the idea of playing against 11 crisis suits, all with AFPs, just gives me the absolute fear.
Yeah, and then if you ever step out, you're just dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you ever step out, you're getting shot by a Riptide that ignores invulnerable saves, two Ghost Kills that you can't shoot, and then all the direct fire from the Cyclic Iron Rakers, the Cyclic Iron Blasters, the Plasma Rifles, and the Commanders. It's nasty. Tau get a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm reading this list and I'm just like, there's like 2 more units here than I think it should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any broad strokes thoughts on Borkan? Is obviously, so Borkan, for those who are following along home, is -1 strength to anything that is strength 7 or lower at range. So your toughness 5 broadsides versus strength 4, 5, 6, basically getting -1 to wound. Strength 3 as well, or not 3, 5, and 6. They're getting -1 to wound.
Yep.
And then the big guys are getting anything that's smaller than the melta gun, -1 to wound, basically. And then plus 4 inches of range. So that takes those irreversing fragmentation projectors to 28-inch range, which is just a super long range on a 10-inch move model. Between that and the ability to advance and fire them, potentially ignoring line of sight modifiers, ignoring hit modifiers, even, you can just dunk indirect fire anywhere on the board.
Yeah, it gets around. I'm super interested in the Riptide tech. That's like really cool. I like those models a whole bunch. I don't love seeing 3 of them, but one as like a
so it's
piece
running
in this is really cool.
It's running an iron accelerator, 2 plasma rifles, carry fire defense system, so you can change the damage characteristic of an attack to 1 or to 1. I think it is for that one. It's 0 for the shield drones.
Yeah.
An early warning override, so that is the better Overwatch, I believe.
Yep, better and free.
Better and free. And also a velocity tracker for plus 1 hitting against fly. So it's hitting on 3s against all the really scary stuff. So yeah, you could be looking at like a squad of custom bikes that's not enabled to hit something with the banner. You're hitting it on 3s, you're ignoring its vulnerable saves, you're forcing CP out of it. Just a very good rate of forcing CP out from this guy.
Do those have reroll access now?
Riptides are not core, so
they're
I
not
don't
think they're core, right?
But you could potentially use like a marker light to cancel out the -1 for the banner and then get the +1 for velocity tracker.
Right.
So there's options for getting a decent consistency. I'm just going to check the stats on that ion accelerator because
it's better into the mirror as well with the velocity tracker, I assume, since then you're shooting crisis suits with +1 to hit as well.
In an ideal world, it's damage 4 and it just flatlines crisis.
That's what I'm really looking at. I'm hoping that I'm going to look at this and it's not just damage 5 for some godforsaken reason.
Yeah,
I think it's damage 3 when it's overcharged.
No, it's 733 or overcharged is 834.
Okay.
Oh.
Now, fortunately, it doesn't actually flank crisis suits because when are you ever firing a crisis suits that aren't 5 feel no pain? But
Maybe, I don't know, man. Like,
maybe time players will just fail 2-ups. That's a win
or
condition, right?
not even that. Just the Farsight one can't even do that, right?
You can with Farsight successors, remember?
Right, but if you're just Farsight,
nobody's doing that,
and you get just shot by Mr. Riptide,
then it's
I will
hurt.
say that Farsight thing is like another one of those annoying things in life.
Oh, it's like the most tenuous argument ever, isn't it? I don't want to get into it too much.
we don't need to have a frustrating discussion, but
why did Tau get to just ignore all their downsides? Yeah, it's really weird.
It's going to be ugly when they get an FAQ that takes away their ability to ignore all their downsides.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? I'm just not holding out hope for FAQs.
It'll happen eventually.
Eventually, in a glacial time frame.
Listen,
Okay.
I get powered back up next week, man. They could be strong
That's
right
true.
now.
For second reference, because this is a major, I will quickly dive into the second place list. Guess what? It's more Tau. I have this one right here. I'm not stalling for time. This is the one that was like so much more violent. Okay, this is a Farsight Enclaves list. It's Farsight, and then Forcer with some air bursts, and then 15 AFP crisis suits. Yeah, I can see these from not having a good time. It's 15 crisis suits, all with air bursting, burst cannons, and plasmas, and then down the line shield generators. Every single one is a shield generator. And then between them, 26 shield drones.
No, thank you.
I figured it out because he's Farsight, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the Riptide's for.
No, he's got a Riptide too.
It's for the Riptide mirror.
So he's also got 2 squads of stealth suits, both with homing beacons, so he can bring 2 of these in from Deep Strike Turn 1. 2 squads of Croot Hounds, and then a Riptide with the same loadout as the previous guy, but with 2 shielded missile drones as well.
I like that the Riptide is nowhere, and then there's a German tournament, and in first
Double
and second, we get
Yeah,
them.
I believe they both went 5-0 as well.
Yeah, of course, as one does.
Yeah. So if you want to have fun in 40k right now, go and buy apparently 15 crisis suits and 26 shield drones, and you can pretend it's still 8th edition.
Yeah, and you get to keep your Riptide too. One of your 3 beautifully painted boys.
Yeah, as long as it has an eye on it, not a burst cannon. So hope it was your relic one.
Yeah, but all right.
And that list also, for reference, single Vanguard.
Hell yeah. I love when people take no detachment that gets CP for your funded. I don't know why that always makes me laugh when someone's like, I'm going to take 2 Vanguards. Or like, I'll take just a Vanguard. It's like, yeah.
I have simply decided violence is more important. Score.
Yeah.
There are good ways to regenerate CP too as Tau.
Not in Farsight.
Yeah, not as them.
He was just like, nah, I got Exemplar of the Monk. I don't need this.
Yeah, he's got exactly as many command points as he needs.
Yeah, look, you're starting with 9. That's drops on clear turn 1, 2, 3. That's all
That's it. We're done.
When I have just one stratagem I use, it's all I need to kill.
I am going to just quickly check Tourney Keeper because I want to shout out this madman's name because I feel bad that I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So if you guys could stall for a minute.
Luke, this list is from a German event called GimpBot. You can check it on Tourney Keeper.
Yeah,
it's not DCP.
Jonas Tretton, who went 5-0 with Tau Empire.
Yes. 15 crisis suits and a Riptide. This might be his name, by the way. We don't know.
I'm going to guess the guy called Jonas Tretton is not like just giving his name. Emo, I'm going to say that's a nickname.
Who knows? Maybe you got that backwards.
You're entirely right. I entirely could have.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody had called Terrorblade showing up to like FLGN events.
Yeah.
That was a Shadowblade. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I bet that person. He played a game next to me.
Good. Okay, that is the GimpBot tournament.
Hey, he said it.
Okay, next up we have the third biggest event of the weekend, which was the Warhammer 40k match play event. Games Workshop really bringing out the innovative names at Warhammer World in the UK. We had 2 5-0 lists here, but the headline list is Ben Allen, and I can do this list from memory because it's really easy.
Yep.
It's 3 Trip Masters and 9 Fusion Boats. As
Sounds
split.
accurate.
I believe one has Twilight Fang, and I believe one is something else. Like, it doesn't matter. It's 9
That's a
Fusion Boats.
list I want to play when the new book comes out. Just like I got 3 data sheets, dog.
Don't think it works when the new book comes out because fusions are changing.
You
But
play with 2 fusions and a little bit more punch people, but whatever. Your shuriken cannons are super spooky now when you have 9 or 18.
18,
so,
yeah.
as a last send off to the Harlequins Codex, it's good to see the 9 Fusion Boats list continuing to be genuinely super solid. The second place list from this event was Cameron Giles on Custodes, who went 5-0. You may remember Cameron from winning another GT a couple weeks ago with Custodes, which was his first GT win. So it's good to see that he's at least maintaining the consistency. And I thought I have Cameron on Twitter, so I'm going to shout him out for that. I'm not surprised. The meta, I will say, at this one did look a decent bit healthier, which you can probably line up a little bit with Warhammer World being a more casual tournament. But it's good to see that the middle tables at like the slightly more casual levels aren't just getting completely blown out. Like, yes, Custodes are winning, but they're not everywhere. There were a few more interesting factions in the top.
There was a well-placing Necrons in that one, wasn't there? It was like 3rd or something.
I will pull it up.
Yeah, there are a couple top 10 placements this weekend for Necrons, which was kind of nice to actually
yeah, there were
see.
a few in my tournament as well.
Did Austin end up turning the corner at Battle Brothers? I don't remember. I watched him play early.
He got 10th.
Oh, all right, yeah, woo!
Yeah, so the Warhammer 40 match play event was Harlequins, Custodes on 5-0, and then Necrons, Demons, Custodes, Knights, Custodes, Tau, Custodes on 4-1.
You said Custodes a whole bunch of times.
Healthier. Healthier is like, yeah. I'm struggling a little bit with the healthier statement there. It's good to see that there are still factions that can put up performances at the casual level, even when Custodes are running.
Yeah,
the meta was maybe a better thing. The meta was only kind of flattened there.
Yeah, the meta was healthier there, the way that it's better to get hit with a wood bat than a steel one.
What kind of steel bat are we talking about?
It just, pretty much most of them.
It's definitely got a 4-up film painting as mortal wounds.
Yeah, and it's gold. It's been spray painted.
That's what Tanglefoot grenades are.
Yeah.
As a graduate student, I don't feel any pain anymore anyway, so what does it matter?
Oh, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, as it was alluded to earlier, we have the Battle Brothers tournament in the US of A, which was a 40-player 5-round tournament, which was won by Michael Walsh, which I will say, I think he has the most unique Custodes list of the tournament. I have, in my notes here, I have 6 Sagittarum, 6 Bikes, and 3 Caladius with Arachnus cannons, all as Emperor's Chosen.
Yep.
Which is, that's a lot of shooting, boy.
Yeah, he's putting the bullets on you.
Yeah, he said, this combat stuff ain't for me, just get shot by Caladiuses. And as a Gene Cycle player, those Caladiuses with the 14 shots are not fun to play against.
You get lit up for free. It's not good.
Still has Trajan, so it can't be that creative.
Yeah. Well, Custodes lists start at 1840 points and Trajan.
Yeah, I was going to say, what does that mean? They start at 1840 with 13 CP, and then you work backwards.
I mean, fair.
Congratulations to Michael. This is definitely a more interesting direction. Like, you can definitely see the Emperor's Chosen have enough juice in them to back pretty much anything. You don't need to run the full 9 bikes. You definitely have a lot of play points with Custodes, which I suppose is a good sign for internal balance. Even if the external balance is off, that you can genuinely run almost any data sheet out of the Custodes Codex and at least get something out of it, with the fact that you can just give them rerolls and resilience from Emperor's Chosen and then flexibility from the Emperor's Chosen stratagem. I have never felt pain like watching a 2-win Caladius spend 2 CP to fall back and shoot and at top bracket. It's not fun. I don't enjoy that.
Oh yeah, because they have the Machine Spirit keyword, right?
Yeah, they got the Machine Spirit.
No.
So, if you want to have no fun, go and fail to kill a Caladius a little bit,
or just burn it with hand flamers, and maybe you'll just kill it on accident, right, Ennis?
Not this time.
Yeah, not this time.
That only happened in my practice game. Not the one that mattered. Okay, next up we have the Salty Classic, which I have got to say is a phenomenal name. This is another Custodes list, a 38-player 5-round GT. And I take it back. This is the most unique Custodes list of the weekend, because this is not only not Emperor's Chosen, it's also not Shadowkeepers. And I will buy a drink for if you can guess on first go without reading the notes.
Solar Watch.
Damn. It's almost like you read the notes.
No, I mean that I played Solar Watch at LVO. Like,
so no. What I'm hearing is that you are admitting you didn't read the notes. Like that.
Oh no.
There was no winning, Anthony.
No,
I
really wanted that drink.
Like, come on, man. What did you think I was going for there?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is William Lozada on William Lozada. I'm going to go with that. On Custodes, it is 10-5-5 a guard, 4 wardens, just like Anthony likes. Kyria, no bikes, no dreads, Solar Watch. So Solar Watch is fall back into charge, I believe.
Yes, it's fall back in charge, and then it's +1 to advance in charge.
Kyria for those secondaries, and also Fight Last, which is a really nice tool to have when you're running with 20 shield guard. I believe it's slightly mixed. It's like 8 shield guard and 2, and then like 3 and 2 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, congratulations to William with a super interesting list. It's good to see. Again, it's good to see that the Custodes book can genuinely put up results with wonky and different lists. I actually am curious if this is like a good mirror breaker, I suppose, because the bikes aren't that great at killing these guys, right?
The shield
guard, yeah, they're not, because they're damage 2. Like you're like wasting damage output. They aren't super reliant on reroll back, and they're still hitting you on like they're strength 6, right? So they're hitting you back on 2s, 4s.
The shooting becomes weirdly problematic. You get shot by those Melta missiles, and you start losing guard left and right.
Yeah, but there's only so many though, and if you've got transhuman on like your big squads, like you could probably manage it.
Yeah, it's just expensive to start using defensive strats on those big squads.
Yeah,
early. Not that you don't have CP, but
if you get to just dump 20 models on the midboard or like a 10 squad that counts as 20 on the midboard and say come deal with this, it probably takes like a couple squads of bikes to do it, and then if you get to clap back into that,
a couple squads of bikes or a particularly upset Draz.
Okay, but I'm talking about the Harlequin's mirror, Anthony, not whatever your fever dreams are telling you about.
The Harlequin's mirror, sir.
My plan all along is just to play Ultimate Clown Cars against Anthony on top of an event.
That will work. I get confused really easily when my enemy's too fast and has too much OBSEC.
No, what you're going to do is start playing a shell game and swapping each other's models back and forth.
That's exactly the plan, is to confuse Anthony with random things throughout the match. Be like, hey, did you read the show notes for next week's episode? And watch him
the answer is no.
Watch him frantically try to come up with an excuse while we stand there at the table.
Okay, we have 4 more GTs to get through. Did you know this was an overloaded week?
There's
so many tournaments. Next up is the Voidhammer GT from Scotland.
We don't have to talk about this one.
This was a 34-player 5-round tournament that was using WTC scoring as opposed to 20 now. And this was won by Innes Wilson on Gene Circle. Anthony, do you want to run us through that list?
I will in a second. Let me pull it up. I figured since we had that guy in close talking distance, he would be able to break it down. But
I really feel like making you do some work after you admitted to not reading the show notes.
You know what? I read the show notes. I didn't read this far down.
This is the first page.
Yeah.
This is on like the 3rd page.
Yeah.
Isn't
Come on,
it?
Innes.
Look, if I can't.
It's on the 3rd page. Come on, bro.
Did you read the show notes that you wrote, Innes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Innes not reading his own show. Maybe Innes just has a really tall monitor and this all fits on one page.
That's what it is. I mean, we can tell you it's Twisted Helix melee trading.
Should we do a quick note on what WTC scoring is for anybody who isn't familiar with it?
Because now would be a good time to explain how you won this event with a loss. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going at. So WTC scoring is a format that doesn't give a crap about wins. That's basically the broad gist of it. Every game is done based on a differential point scoring. So every 5 points you win by after the first 5, if you're like within 5 points of each other, that's considered a draw. You get 1 point added to your score, and your opponent loses 1 point. So, for example, if I was to beat Nathan by 15 points, I would round down to the lowest winnable 10. I would win 10, and then I would win a 12-8 in the match. And that is the only thing that's considered in the overall score. So if I win by 51, it's a 20. If I win by 2 points, it's a 10-10. That's a draw. And then every margin between that is what you get for your scoring. So the main thing to note with that is that nowhere in that did I say that your wins are considered. My favorite
just
thing.
Points.
Just points. This is basically because it's intended to work for like the team pairings for WTC,
Yep.
hence the name, where the number of wins you get over a team level don't actually matter. You could win 3 out of 8 games and still win the event if you get big enough wins and small enough losses. And we carry that over to the singles format because we find it interesting. It's a good way to promote defensive play, give you options in losing matchups, and it makes me win more tournaments, which I like, even if I'm not running them.
No bias here at all, by the way.
No. I would never, as the WTC Team Scotland captain, be slightly favoured of the WTC scoring system.
Yeah.
But what that does mean is that it is entirely possible for somebody to win a tournament without winning all of their games and come higher than somebody who did win all their games. This has happened to me twice now. It's been funny both times because the Americans on the internet get so riled up at it, and I think it's hilarious because this is just like when I started playing 40K, I was really confused by this too, and now I love it because I keep winning because of it. So
I can confirm it's real confusing to be like, wait a minute, the guy in second beat the guy in first. How did?
Yeah, but it was only by a little bit, so it doesn't count.
Just a touch, so it's fine.
That's exactly it. I beat everybody else by way more than he did.
That's fair. You did it with not one of the two armies. So on that note, we got your list here. This is from Innes. I have a podcast again, Wilson.
Doing that promotion.
Yep, you got to get it in there. I really enjoy that you put your secondary info in your list. That saves a lot of having to explain that at the table.
It's a requirement of the WTC format, actually, Anthony. It's not my thing. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. I'm going to make note of that.
Back at some point?
Yeah. Well, it's months away. Just put the pack in the show notes, and then I can avoid them both at the same time. So going into this real quick, it is hilarious that this list has 22 assassinate points, by the way. That's like my favorite. Like, I thought that was a point value of a unit when I first looked at the list, and I was like, what's 22 points? Oh, it's assassinate. All right, so he's got a Patriarch, a Magus, an Icon Ward. He got the Flagman in there. 10 hybrids with melee stuff, 10 hybrids with melee stuff, 10 hand flamers, 2x5 hand flamers, another hybrid unit, some bikes, a big old metamorph unit of 14. What do we got? We got 10 pure strains, 9 pure strains, 5 pure strains. Kellermorph with the Root and Tootin relic. He's got the Worm Tooth rounds. And we got a Sanctus, a Nexus, and 2 Goliaths. That is so many characters. I just kept saying characters.
22. I only gave up 15 once. And that was against the time when I was throwing my characters away to get to try and deny a Squad of Crisis and Deep Striking. I just have a character. If they don't come in, I win the game.
Yep.
It's really easy to protect them. People don't expect it. If you take Assassinate against me, then I put 2 on my home field objective and say, they're not going to die. And that's a Patriarch that you don't want to come near. And then they never score 15. It's great. Love it. So broadly, this is a Twisted Helix melee list. It is relying mostly on playing on board because the level of terrain, like WTC stuff, which we weren't playing on, the terrain was actually fairly light at the weekend. But you could generally hide a good chunk of it with like pre-game moves and deep strike, like into safe places, and then the trucks just give you so much flexibility. And then you have, for a couple of reserve charges, you have the Icon Ward who makes things reliable. The Metamorphs generally hit their charge, and then you can generally hit one more charge with the 7-inch with a reroll, as long as your Metamorphs don't utterly crap the bed. It's a lot of fun. You have a lot of tools. It makes you think really hard. And the damage output is just really good. Strength 5 Gene Stealer, Strength 5 Acolytes, Strength 6 Metamorphs. The main thing I really like about it is that Custo's defensive strats do almost nothing to me. If I can play around Tanglefoot, you can't transhuman anything. I have 2 models that have rerolls without using the Primus, which honestly the Primus rerolls aren't that big a deal. I'm going to cut them anyway. Broadly, so Custo defensive stratagems aren't really a problem. Tau ones, on the other hand, minus 2 to charge is real nasty when it doesn't need line of sight. And Tau are the toughest matchup for this list, and they're why I brought the Icon Ward in the first place. He gives you some options where, like, if you lose a transport and some guys jump out, and then you lose a couple to breaking their ankles, he gets you them back in front of where those guys were, and then you can get short charges. And that was my big room play, and that gave me some options to Tau, and that actually really helped.
Do you ever like emergency disembark to get the 1s and 2s and the extra distance and then res? Do you ever
never did that because I never needed to.
Because that was too crazy.
You can spend 1 CP to advance and charge them.
Advance and charge,
so you don't really need like the extra 3 inches. But you could definitely do that as well if you are really in a pinch. The problem with it is mostly coherency at that point. It's really hard to get like the distance to chain back all the way, especially if you're going to lose like 3 or 4 models.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely something you can do if your Icon Ward's in the right position for it. Overall, super fun list. I will shout out Brian, who is the guy who came second. Brian's there, who won the Leicester Super Major a couple months ago. He was playing First Enclaves, Outer Enclaves, so the First Allied set, with two big bricks of crisis, one with like all of the damagey stuff, so cyclics and plasma, and then one with AFPs and flamers, and then a 3 Devilfish rush with breaches and pathfinders. Super interesting list, really, really tough to play against. I came 3 inches or a bike not dying off of killing 500 points in deep strike on turn 3. And I came one tear down their icons, 4 up bomb defusal from a squad of crisis it's away from the draw as well, which broke my heart.
Yeah, that's a heartbreaker.
But no, it was fine. Really good event. Super happy to go to it. It was good fun. I will be back up there in the future. I won it last time I was there as well, so I have to do the 3-peat now. That's just on the cards. Okay, that is going to call it for the Voidhammer because it was just me. It's not that interesting. Next up, we have the Viking Games tournament in Sweden, which was also a no-Tau tournament. And this was 34 players and 5 rounds, won by a name some of you may remember, and some of you may have flashbacks to, is Rickard Nilsson on Admech.
You should know this one.
You should know Rickard Nilsson's name. Rickard is an incredibly professional Admech player who's been playing them basically non-stop since I've known about 40k. He is the only 5-0 player at this tournament, and he was running the Army of Renown for the Skitarii with Lucius instead of Mars, which generally I've not seen anything outside of Mars Metallica and this last one, Mars Metallica, Ryza for the punchy stuff. So seeing a Lucius version of this is really cool.
Lucius was super popular in the beginning, but then it just fell off.
Yeah, because it got nerfed, remember?
Yep, no, I remember.
He's been running Lucius a lot. He was running the Lucius Horde for a while as well, so I'm not surprised to see him stick with it. Broad strokes is 2 Marshals and a Manipulus, 1 big squad of Rangers, 1 big squad of Vanguard, 2 small squads of Vanguard, 3 massive squads of Ruststalkers, a small squad of Sterilizers, and then triple indirect bolts. I believe
it's violent.
I'm just
triple indirect boats is some stuff.
This list starts with 4 CP.
Yeah, it's Tau and it's Vet cohort though, so it really starts with like 10. I mean, it's Admech and it's Vet cohort, so it starts with like 10 in actuality. That's what Siegler said when I played him at LVO. He was like, "Yeah, I start with 5, but like wink, wink. I start with 5 because like a handful of these are going to be free. Some of them are going to cost less. Like, it's not really that.
Yeah, it's not really thought for, but it does feel like a very few CP.
It
feels like you could definitely mismanage your resources on this super easily.
I mean, even if you just get it wrong and you mistime the discount, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
No, super well done to Rickard. Listed as in the Cult Mechanicus. This is not a Cult Mechanicus list. It's not how that works. This should be Skitarii or at least Admech. Come on, Rickard, you know better than that.
Yep.
There's also a Techno-Archaeologist, which I believe is like the character that lets things do actions and turns off deep striking. Yeah, which might just be like a Gene Stealer cult kind of tech.
That's
I know there's some really good Gene Stealer cult players like Carl in Sweden, so having the option there definitely gives you some choices. He was the only 5-0 player at the tournament, so that is going to call it for that. We have 2 more. We have the Melee at Shiloh, which was won by none other than Nick Nanavati. From the dead, functionally.
Yeah, lesser known player on the come up. That guy hasn't played a lot recently.
Renowned playtester Nick Nanavati as well.
No, stop that! I got him in so much trouble.
And Nick was playing. Nick went 4-0-1 at this tournament. He had a draw with Admech and Knights. He was playing a Hunter's Instinct and Industrial Affinity, which for the uneducated or unfamiliar with Gene Cult, which is probably most people, is reroll charges and ignore hit modifiers on industrial weapons, which is basically anything you think is a heavy weapon or like grenade launcher, or most melee weapons are industrial weapons. They ignore the hit modifiers. He's a Patriarch. He has a Icon Ward, the Alien Majesty. Good stuff. We have 2 big squads of Acolytes with combat staff, for 3 5s of Acolytes, a 10 of Neophytes with seismic cannons, 2 squads of Pure Strains, 3 squads of Jackals, and a Goliath truck. And then a second detachment for another Patriarch. And Primus, 3 more squads of Neophytes with seismic cannons, and then also 2 Ridge Runners with the bounce into reserve on then coming on turn 1 if they want to, so they can get them some good angles. Yep. This is a lot of stuff that can just get in the way and be super obsec.
So, NS, we have a question in the chat that I think you're most well equipped to answer. which is please try to figure out how Nick won this tournament using this list.
Well, okay, I'm gonna give you the 3-step process. One is hit charges. That always works really well. When you play Jason Cuts, if you hit charges, you will win more games than you will lose because it's just that easy. You have a lot of obstacles that can come up either way. 7-inch charges with the icon wards, and you have real charges. That means every single unit in this list is like 84% to make a charge.
Yep.
If you can just get a lot of people down with that, with just the amount of obstacles this has, gun them up with demo charges, with demo charge Alan Jackals, you got the trucks, you got the Gene Stealers that can just get in the way. There is definitely a lot of possibility to do some stuff here. You've also got the rock cars that are hitting on 3s, rolling 1s from the Primus that are damage 3, which can just solve a lot of problems for you. And then on top of that, he's Nick Nanavati. Like, for as much as you may have forgotten, he is still pretty good at 40k. I don't know if anybody doesn't realize that, but Nick has, while he's been out of the scene for a while, probably still plays more 40k than most people are going to tournaments right now.
I watched Nick beat someone at 40k while he was on a small enough amount of sleep that I'm not sure his soul was in his body. And he just on autopilot, like the knowledge is so like deep in that man's brain that he just won the game off like this is what must happen now.
Yeah, Nick is as close to a savant as we have had in 40k, but he has to be filled with alcohol to do it.
Yeah, that's an important step for him.
So yeah, huge props to Nick for winning this event. I will say he did draw, as I said, with Admech and Knights, and I did see in one of the discords I'm in that he was saying that he did feel that the list had a real lack of melee punch.
Yep,
it just doesn't have enough stuff to solve problems, and the seismic cannons are kind of garbage. So
yeah, he brought that up in the Art of War Discord, I think, as well. That like he's lacking. This list is lacking in damage. Like he had an actual problem with he played a Black Templar player. He had a real issue going through Crusader bricks, which is like kind of funny. Like the idea that a GSC list would have trouble with like marine bodies specifically is like, wait a second, what?
Yeah. I think there's a real argument that you should cut Hunter's Instincts here and take the 6-day all wound against non-vehicles instead in melee and trim some of the seismic cannons and just get a little more melee punch in there. Right. It's definitely a strong list. I think you got a lot of options there, but yeah, maybe not for the defensive profiles that are kind of showing up at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone said he was yeeting the solo truck up the board, then chilling the icon ward nearby and using his actions to nab 7-inch rolling charges. Yep, that's probably the approach that you take with Gene Circle, whether you're doing like the reroll charges or not. That's how you're playing Helix for deep strike charges as well. You've just got to get this in place. I think this list would benefit a lot from Rock Grinders as well. That would be probably very good for it because it's already running the ignoring hit modifiers, and they really do appreciate that.
It's on the door anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Okay, we are going to jump onto our last tournament because we are running a little long. 9 tournaments will do that to you.
Yep.
The last one we have is another WTC scoring tournament, which was the Victoria Masters. And this was won by Stuart Trainer on Prescient Brethren Grey Knights. Broad strokes, this one is 4 Dread Knights, Morrowind's Librarian, Tech Marine, 25 Interceptors, 15 Strikes. And that's it. That's Grey Knights. Yeah, it's good to see that the old hat lists have still got a good bit of power there. Nothing super surprising. I don't think anybody's surprised to hear that if a Grey Knight list won, it was this heavy. I am surprised it's this heavy on interceptors, given the increase on points. That's 26 points a model now, but still running almost the full 25. Yeah, it's good to see. And Prescient Brethren for that CP regeneration. You don't have the damage output of Sword Bearers to dunk on a single target, but a lot of the stuff you're trying to dunk on right now is like Custodes don't really care about that. Like the possible damage is good, but you can get that outside of it. And the plus 1 to wound is transhuman. They're going to do that anyway, right? So who cares?
The rerolls from Prescient are not particularly relevant into Custodes, but in general are really nice.
Yeah. They're not irrelevant though, right? Because you get like the 3 regular guys that are rerolling 1s, and then you put it on the Grandmaster, and then you start split firing. And then you can make it. You're going to get 3 models that have rerolls still, right? So
yeah, deeply problematic that can become.
Yeah, so no, it's good to see. Congratulations to Stuart for taking a tournament with a less faction. I believe he also went 4-0-1. There were no 5-0 players at the Vic Masters, which is also called the Vic Masters 2021 on PCP. You're going to go looking for that list just to really confuse people.
That's funny. Pick it up for the skip tier.
Yep. Time's irrelevant at this point. It's just all.
This is 2019-3.
Exactly. It's March. Somebody said it once. It's like March 580 or something like
It's,
that.
Yeah.
it's
Anymore.
Thursday 400 or something, right? That's
Mhm.
at
Not
this
again.
point. Okay, folks, that is it for part one of the show. We are going to do a quick wrap up now on the themes of the week. So, Tower and Custodes, problem or not? Let's do that one as the closing thoughts here.
Oh man, yeah, it looks problematic. It's not good. I'm quick to be like, let's just see what happens, but we're starting to get into like probably slam some knee jerk stuff. I'm more worried about the Custodes than I am Tau, because in general, I'm more worried about things that affect a broader spectrum, and I think you can still. I think you can still feed with Tau, and I think that's a lot harder to do with Custodes.
Yes,
Like
you can genuinely make mistakes that will lose you a game on Tau that would not lose you a game on an easier faction.
yeah, you
I
can
think
like
the problem at the top level for Tau is going to be way worse than Custodes, because I
Yeah.
think good Tau players that don't make those mistakes are going to just start crushing people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's going to be a real world where you play a good Tau player and he's playing solitaire and you're kind of just waiting for him to fuck it up. But against Custodes, I really don't, in general, I don't like things that have an opportunity to remove most meaningful skill expression.
Yeah,
And I
they
think
do
that
a very good
Custodes
job of
represent
reducing the game
that.
to 4-ups, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that many 4-ups because of all the defensive stuff. So
Yeah.
like I had this conversation earlier where like it feels really bad when they spike, but even when they like swing the other direction, it doesn't feel that good because you only put like 7 saves on them. So if they fail 5, you're like, nice.
Oh, that's one bike, yeah.
Yeah, but if they pass 6, you're like,
Oh,
oh,
I did no damage.
no.
I needed to kill that one wound guy, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me.
Yep.
Cool. So that's it for this one. So we are going to do our closing thoughts now, and then we are going to be launching to part 2. So please do stick around. We are not kicking you out just now. But for now, this is the end of part 1 of the 40k Fight Club Flat Earth meta. And if you don't know why it's called Flat Earth meta, it's because the Earth is not flat, but many people believe it is. But the meta sure is flat because Custodes and Cloud just pushed everybody down to that 50% win rate, which is healthy in some ways. If you would like to support the show, please do hit that like button on the YouTube video. That really helps us with discoverability. And you can also hit subscribe if you want to see your feed get all of the show notifications for all of the other shows on the network. So that's ourselves. You've also got Best in Faction: The Next Generation, Ep.4 OG, and I believe there's one other show on the network at the moment, but I'm struggling with it. Chasing the Narrative. That's Colin's new one.
That'll be starting soon. Yeah,
that's starting soon.
Yeah, that'll pop up.
So there are going to be some cool things there. Other than that, if you would really like to support the show and if you would like to stick around for the subscriber half after we go behind the subscriber wall, you can check out patreon.com/bestintabletop. $10 a month gets you access to one of the best 4K communities I've ever been a part of. Genuinely, somebody actually asked me today, do you ever get annoyed about getting like people asking you questions in chat, just like for one of our local group chats? And I'm like, not at all, because this kind of community didn't exist when I started. And I was asking questions on like Warseer and waiting 6 business weeks for a reply to like a question like, should I put Kronos in a Land Raider Redeemer? No, by the way, he auto hits. Why would you need posted skill 2?
Yeah, don't do that.
But no, that didn't make sense to me. So it's really awesome to have these kinds of communities around, and I'm always super happy to be involved in them, regardless of like whatever player level. And in these communities, you can get access to some of the best players in the world. You got There we go. Mirrored camera still getting me. You got access to Anthony. You got access to myself. You've got access to John Lennon, Alex McDougall. All these people are in there. You get access to all the Ep.4 guys, which I guess is us as well now. That feels weird. Yeah, so please do check it out. We would really love seeing you there. It's a really good community. Okay, thank you. We're going to take a 2-minute break because I need to run to grab another drink of water, and then we'll be back to launch into part 2, where we'll be going into a general discussion of the meta and what we think we should be doing as players about it, and also what we think needs to be done about it. And then we will be taking questions from the Patreon Discord. Thank you very much, everybody, for sticking around, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. And the stream will keep running, so please just stick around.
Have random chat questions. Me and Nathan might answer you now more quickly than we would during when we're not looking. He's not alone. I'm right here.
Somebody in chat. Somebody's chat's like, poor Nathan, all alone. Don't worry,
Yeah.
I entertained myself.
It's okay. This is the in between show bit that Tyler edits out. So you guys are getting a live stream exclusive bit right now.
Yeah, you guys get the special edit of us trying to stretch and be human between
The
sets.
extended cut.
Yeah.
What's the correct answer to are those liquefier grots in range? The answer is, why do you have liquefier grots?
Oh, that's so rude.
Anthony, why do you tolerate Innes?
I like him.
I don't know
either. He's great.
Honestly, for all of the crap we give Innes, we both, I think, love Innes dearly.
Yeah. Twice I've had people be like, dude, you have Innes from Twitter on your podcast? That's awesome. And I was like, I think he's Innes from Scotland, but I guess Innes from Twitter works.
Nick, if you just signed up on the Patreon, what you need to do is message. There should be a message function. If you message, you should be able to get access to Colin or Mitch. There should also be a Discord integration button. If you hit that, you will get a link to the server, and then when one of the moderators is on, they will give you access. So please do check that out. Thank you very much for signing up. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's before we go too much further, chat keeps asking about your hoodie, and so you need to stand up and give us
You
a
got
show
a fashion show.
of
The
the
I mean,
hoodie.
I'm also wearing Marvel pajama bottoms right now, so you just get the full show.
This
We're
normally would go in the second half. Woo!
Oh, that's
Look at those.
I
Look
like
at those
it.
dinosaurs. Luminary, they go into the lightning round part of the Discord.
Yeah, so you should be able to see there is a section of the Discord lightning round. It's the same place that Colin asked a question for the regular ones.
Yep.
I will post in there generally about 24 hours before the next show. You'll be able to jump in there. I may ask Colin at some point for our own separate bit, but for now, because there's no overlap, we're just using that one.
Mm-hmm.
Billy, not a comment, not a question, not a comment. Yay for violence, CWE. Those buffer off rules are insulting. That's all I'm going to say. I don't understand why he works the way he does, but
yeah, he just gets to leave, dude. He doesn't want any more of this. He's had enough, and he's going over there now.
He's the MC Hammer of Phoenix Lords.
I'll tell you what, Alex. When I win my GT in 2 weeks, I'll wear this on the podium. Okay?
Hell yeah,
that's a promise. I called my last one 5 months ago, so. That hoodie is why you're single. For me, it's just being a normal person. No, there are so many more reasons.
Poor Innes, dude, just gets lit up for free.
Wow.
Martine is a dear friend of mine. Somehow.
Okay,
so
that's good.
That's how I knew how to pronounce his name first go when he asked the question earlier.
That makes sense. Yeah, I definitely would have missed if I tried that. I might miss it now, having heard you say it a few times. So I'm just gonna let you keep answering him and hope that he keeps his flame directed at you.
I don't know. I'm just going to mispronounce Innes's name a lot today.
Okay. Brutal.
I will tag you on Discord like 10 more times. Do you have any thoughts on what we're seeing from the CW decks? I don't really have any yet because we still haven't seen points costs or most of the stratagems. It's really hard to judge in a vacuum. The data sheets seem very, very powerful. Broadly, there are some that kind of look like stinkers, like Wraithblades kind of just didn't look good.
Okay.
I'm not looking forward to the indirect. That is the only thing that I really have.
I'm pretty much of a similar stance. Like Banshees are super scary unless they're 22 points. And then
the league said they're 18.
Yeah, sure. If they're right. But if they're not, then
I don't know. Scorpions look good too, right? The Phoenix Lords actually look good.
Yeah, the Phoenix Lords broadly look really good.
Which is an incredible thing to me because Karandris has never been good. And Karandris, now
if you just make him murder whatever he touches, he's pretty good.
All right, guys, we're going to take a 10-second silence so that we can give Tyler a nice clean break for editing, and then we will be launching into part 2. Thank you very much for sticking around, everybody. We are really looking forward to this. So if we could just get 10 seconds of silence from the hosts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to 40K Fight Club Part 2. I am your host, Innes Wilson, and I am joined again for the second part. If you're listening to this like a week later for some reason, I am joined by Anthony Violence Vanilla and also Nathan something. We'll work on that one for you, okay? Welcome to part 2 of the show. For now, this is free for everybody, but this will be the part that's going behind the subscriber wall. So if you want to continue listening to this in the future, if you enjoy what we're doing, you can check us out on Patreon. We're only doing this at the start of this one. Obviously, this will not happen in the real episodes once we do go behind that wall, because you'll already be there, and that's the good bit. This is the part of the show where we're going to talk about the general meta of 40k. This is mostly just myself and Anthony and Nathan riffing off each other and diving into some meta discussions. And then at the end of the show, we will be taking some lightning questions from the chat and also from the Patreon Discord. So if you want to leave a question for the Discord, you can leave it in chat just now, or if you are a Patreon, you can leave it in the Discord, and we are much more likely to read it from there because we'll not catch it as the chat goes by. Let's get started. Anthony, Nathan, meta, what are you doing about it? Let's not do too much on Drakari and Gene this week because we really went heavy on them last week. But What's your game plan for the meta?
I am getting ready to switch to a new army, if that's an acceptable answer.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so with Craft Worlds and Harlequins coming out, I am super duper excited to blend a lot of my current ideas with some clowns, as well as get into something new to me, because I know this upsets you every time I say it, but the entire time that I've played this game, Eldar have been bad. So it'll be really exciting to see them be good. Because there's I know a lot of people have a lot of psychic damage from the times before, but I can barely tell the difference between aspect warriors because I've just never seen them on the tabletop. I don't know what a lot of this stuff does. People are that's a ranger and that's a guardian. I'm I don't know. That's Eldar troop with not a very good gun. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about a lot of this stuff, so it's going to be really interesting to go into this book with a fresh look, without the scars of meta's past, and be hey, what about this thing that was never good before? Maybe it's good now. Maybe it's called an avatar and you could put way too many buffs on it, and that's really funny. That is something I'm particularly excited for. The idea of just it's not ever it'll pretty infrequently happen that you get all the buffs, but being able to just windmill slam 5 buffs on that man is so funny.
Get the idea AdMech style buffs going.
Yeah, on a T8 14 wound man with multi-melta damage and melee.
So you just
awesome.
know that the first turn you put him down, you're gonna fail to cast the buffs on him, and 9 salvo launches are gonna remove him.
Dude, he tanks that pretty good. It'll be alright.
No, I'm talking just straight up flop dice rolls.
Yeah, no, just fail the invulns and lose.
It's I once watched 11 Darklands shots kill 7 Deathwing Terminators. And it was just I don't understand what happened either, because the conversion rate there is 1. I'm envisioning that for the first person that puts the avatar or the incarn on the table, they just get annihilated out of nowhere. I'm
not as interested in the incarn. Ynnari to me, in the fluff, is the coolest set of elf stuff. I really like the idea of this dying race that's we're gonna die, let's take Slaanesh down with us. Mm-hmm. That's really metal. But same thing. They've been even worse. Eldar is bad while I've played, but Ynnari has been a actual meme the entire time that I've played.
Ynnari are the single faction that has probably caused the most mental scars to anybody who played between 2014 and 2017. If you played during that period, Ynnari are imprinted in your brain.
Oh yeah,
they're our Alamo, man.
Yeah, I'm sure loads of people quit the game because of them, but I have never seen them be good, and to me they seem really cool. So I'm excited.
I'm genuinely more excited for the Incarn because I just look at it and I'm the playmaking potential there is insanity. The ability to teleport just has always been so good, and when we saw stuff like Naden just absolutely annihilate people with her, seeing what skilled Eldar players can do depending on how Ynnari works ship-wise. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do, because the Ynnari, specifically the Incarn, is the only Eldar model I respect.
Yeah, the ability to put an elf unit in an inconvenient position and be oh yeah, go ahead, kill them, because then she'll be right next to you. That's fine. Or don't kill them, and I'll get a 15 on primary is real interesting to me.
The only thing I have that has going for that is that generally Phoenix Lords are prevented from being included in Ynnari, so that you're not going to have to deal with a Phoenix Lord dying eventually and the card popping out, because that would honestly give me the night sweats.
Yeah. If the Karandras finally goes down and then it just becomes the Incarn, and you're please. So yeah, I'm really excited for a lot of that stuff. I think she'll also be really good at just suplex dunking Custodes. Her being AP4 and ignoring your invulnerable save makes you sad.
It's working out so well for Be'lakor.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, but the rest of Bellacor's army is bad. Like if you had
Yeah,
if the
I
army
know.
if the army of Bellicor rules were stapled to even a semi-functional data sheets, that army would be terrifying. But instead it's just a bunch of trash with aluminum foil around it to make it shiny. Like
Yeah, I
not
genuinely
good.
think Disciples of Bellicor are an interesting meta choice at the moment because they are really good into Tau, and I think that might bear out in the stats a little bit, Nathan. I don't know if you've seen anything on that, but like Plague Bearers are not easy for Tau to kill when they're at -1, when they're -2 to hit and ignoring modify and ignoring rerolls, and
What if the Tau
Bloodletters
ignore
can get in their
modifiers?
line. Yeah, but not on everything, right?
That's true. That's
You
fair.
get the one squad, sure,
Mhm.
and then everything else is
Yeah.
just like missing. And
Yep.
then you have the Bloodletters that don't care about -2 to charge because they're only 3 dice drop the lowest. They're only 3
Oh
dice,
yeah.
not even drop the lowest at +1. So cool, you've made them a 10-inch charge on 3 dice with a reroll, which is like somewhere in the 70s, 80s% to make it, and they can do that every turn of the game for 3 turns.
Is there an Overwatch turn off for them?
No, but they can walk through walls and over models with a stratagem.
Yeah.
They can walk through. Whoa, that's cute.
So you can just like drop Bloodletters behind a wall, charge over a screen into crisis suits and stuff like that, as long as you can get them to have them.
Right.
But no, there isn't a specific Overwatch now. And then also, I really like Flamers at the moment. They went down to 20 points. In Minotaur Field Manual, down from 23. You can run like genuinely considering running like 27 Flamers for 540 points. It's a lot of models to get mortal wounds that are all 4 invulnerable save, -1 to hit, no rerolls. You can warp surge them to a 3 invulnerable save if they're caught in a bad position. The deep strike, they do mortal wounds on their 6s with a stratagem for 1 CP. The deep strike for 1 CP because they're 9-man squads. You can teleport them. You can make them immune to shooting unless they're the closest. You can put them behind a wall of stuff. Genuinely quite like them. I don't want to buy 20. I don't want to buy 18 more. But
you don't like them that much. They're great in Total War. You can play with them there.
You could run like 3x5 and not feel bad about it, or like 3-3-12, 3-3-9 to have like one big one to use the strats.
Yep.
Don't hate it. I think it might have some options. I would like to see some more play from Bellicor. I know we saw Mark Ish running Disciples with like 150 models.
Yeah.
Fairly recently, top 4 a GT. So
there's a world where you like just put too much garbage around and like they don't get rid of it fast enough.
And it's all obsec, so you have play into Custodes.
Yep.
And honestly, like Bloodletters aren't that bad into Custodes either. Like you're winning them on 5s, but you have a lot of attacks. You double fight.
I like the mass trash odds better into Custodes than I do Tau. I feel like Tau with enough airburst volume in the one unit specifically, because then they're just going to ignore everything and murder you, is real rough.
The question is if you can strike the right balance of enough trash stuff for Custodes and Tau, and if you can find that balance, then I think there might be play there.
Right.
I don't think there's any CSM in it.
Yep. No, I don't. Me either. I think it's demons with shiny buffs.
Genuinely, is it mental that demons book is still reasonably decent this far into its lifespan?
So I didn't play.
It does nothing.
Yeah, I didn't play back then. But what was it like when that came out? Was it just insane, or has it just somehow tripped and fell through the meta and maintained like, pretty good?
It was. I mean, so the in the index, Brimstone Horrors were 2 points and had a 4 invulnerable save, and full smite. When smite didn't go up. Yeah. So
that seems questionable.
It was, yeah. They got nerfed like 4 times. Nothing in this game has been nerfed more than Brimstone Horrors in all of 40k, I don't think, except maybe 5 turns.
Yeah.
So then the book came out and it was broadly kind of crap because it didn't have like the Keepers of Secret State sheets weren't out, but it had like builds that you could soup into chaos stuff with. And then since then, it's kind of just gone from weird strength to weird strength. Like it suited really well with Thousand Suns for a while because you'd have like the deep striking Zangars, the dark matter crystal, and then you'd also back that up with like a squad of Bloodletters that have a deep strike in turn 2. And you had like this really cool counter double threat. So they've got by on that for a while. They've had the Piece of Nurgle build. They obviously had like the Vassal Poxhawk, the Vassal Lanigan Playbearers build.
Yep.
They've had the start of 9th edition. They had the
Keeper's Rush.
They had like the Keeper Rush with Magnus Mortarion back when Magnus and Mortarion were best friends. Yep. I think that list was genuinely one of the best lists in the game at one period of time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then since then, they've still been finding decent success with like Keeper spam. Bellicor has breathed life into that codex in a way that I wasn't expecting. The fact that a nearly 400-point model is genuinely not insane, but also good enough to prop a faction up is really cool. And I think it's a really, really good example of good design from Games Workshop.
Yeah, he's
and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Temples of Bellicor do with the new rules for both Chaos and Chaos Demons.
Yeah, I think even with just like the rumored CSM stuff coming out, that could be real good in Disciples. That'll be interesting. This is an interesting.
I'm much more excited for the Chaos Demons book than I am for Chaos Space Marines. I've never been much of a Chaos Space Marines player, but Chaos Demons are my jam.
I'm like on the complete opposite side where I don't care about anything in Chaos except CSM. Like I don't care about Demons, I don't care about Thousand Suns, I don't care about Death Guard. I'm here to play like Emperor's Children and Black Legion. I want to play those two things and nothing else.
I don't know if I've ever told this minor story, but the two things that I loved the most when I started with 4K, I started 4K with the Orcs and Space Marines Codex, or Orcs and Space Marines box set. I kept the Space Marines. I've never painted any of the Orcs because I had standards even back then.
Yep.
And the first two things that I like dedicatedly bought that weren't for Space Marines because I was like, oh, I need to get this to playable was a Carnifex and a Squad of Bloodletters.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
That's all I want.
Those are high appeal models. We have an interesting question from chat. How do we feel about Kayun versus Montka? Playing with them or against them with the things that we play?
Montka is just so good that it's hard to justify even thinking about building around Kalion for me. The speed you get, the Devilfish, like I don't think you have to play the Devilfish Rush.
Yep.
But the amount of speed you get, the ability you get to just like advance your stuff around and not care about it without even having to use. So you can use the ignore modifiers on the big Sword of Crisis that's going to do all the cool stuff to ignore like the -1 and dens and blah blah blah. But all your little squads still just functionally get +1 to hit and also double their movement.
Right.
It's just really good. And then you also get the extended range on Exemplar of the Montka. So that goes from 9 to 12 inch range, which is a really, really big increase on a unit that can like move 18, get 4 rolls to wound, and then go 6 inches backwards. When that unit's 15 inches away from you versus 18 inches away from you, that's a big difference in the likelihood of threat ranges.
Yep.
Like a Squad of Movement 6 stuff could theoretically hit a 15. Because you go 5, you go 6, and then they're within 9, so you get an 8-inch charge. Maybe you're +2, and then an 18-inch charge is now like, well, that's you're on double 6s, or you're on an 11-inch charge.
It's going to be a
less
13
likely.
after
You also
they
have
use
to
the strat.
be alive after you were there. It just genuinely makes the unit so much more flexible.
Montka also turns on turns 1 through 3, right?
Whereas 1 through 3, so it works
turns
earlier.
on 4 through 6.
It interacts really well with the secondary that works for. It's like mini Stranglehold for Tau, but it's like 4-4-4-2-2, and then 2-2-4-4-4, depending on if you're calling on Montka. So you get the points earlier, so you can just start racking up the points super quick and make your opponent have to respond to that much earlier.
Right.
Whereas with Kalion, you're getting in the hole early. So if you start losing stuff and you don't have the capacity to get on the 4s, it also gives you reroll 1s to wound, which can be a limiter, especially if you're not playing Farsight. And the AP really helps. Target locks give you more cover, and then your APs go to AP2. There's a strat to hit them to AP3. There's an AP1 and an AP3 on.
That was huge.
It's insane. Like it's literally like tripling your damage output against some targets. The fact that Kalion doesn't turn on, if Kalion turned on turn 2, I would have more of an argument for it. But because it just takes so long to get online, and the only thing you really get out of it is the redeploy that people aren't even taking anyway.
Right.
I struggle to justify it.
I think I come from like the other side. So like from as the opponent, I am more worried about someone as again specifically as the thing I play. I'm more worried about someone taking Kayun and then just being like, I'm gonna not do anything. I'm gonna stand over here. You can run at me if you want, but you're gonna have to stand out in the open at least once to do that. A turn in the open against the Tau is death sentence, and if they get better as the game goes on, that is a horrifying prospect. Whereas in the other side, if they have to get close to me to do things, I can make them get close to me against things they don't necessarily want to hit, or and then kind of use the thing behind them to hit them.
Yeah, I suppose
theoretically,
the question I have with that is like, do you need the exploding? Like turn 3 is exploding 6s. Like yes, it's good, but it's only against closest target. It's not that much more of a buff than reroll 1s and extra AP is. It's not until like turn 4-5, but like. I don't know, man. It just seems so weird.
They kill me so efficiently regardless. It's more that on turn in 4 and 5 when they have like 1 or like 3 to 4 things left, those things will just light me up for free, like real hard. Like you could have 3 commanders left on turn 4 and just ruin half my army. And it's that point.
Well, they only get exploding force against the closest target, right? So
Right, but they'll just destroy whatever's close to them, and if you cascade it correctly, it's real bad.
It
So
works. Yeah, it does. You can't like kill one unit and then get the exploding force against the second
I'm saying
unit
like
as well.
for their
Yeah.
For
brother.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Just for
I think
anybody
we-
following home, it locks in when you declare the target. Basically, that's based on an Imperial Knights FAQ from 8th edition that is load bearing, and if that ever goes away, we're fucked. But
Right, yeah, it's doing a lot of work for
we have
everybody else.
a load bearing Imperial Knights FAQ. It's not a great thing for the game, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. It's there, and that's how we rock. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting question to explore the difference between the two.
Yeah, I think Tau builds for the time being are leaning super heavy on Monka because you can just win games turn one and you don't have to worry about it. If you consider it also from like a mental load perspective, turn playing the I'm going to kill you turn 1, 2, 3 game is really, really easy compared to the Kylon game plan.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder to sit in one spot and like be patient, like to just not do anything. I think that's the play style that people struggle with.
I also don't think the
most
missions
mentally.
super reward the super patient play style at the moment.
It's a lot harder to catch up.
Really want you to go into your opponent's path.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that wants you like out there doing stuff,
and Monka just lines up with that better.
Yeah, I think if I was new to Tau, I'd be trying to run a lot of the Breacher Rush stuff because it seems a little more straightforward, and I would use that to ease me into the faction until I had played like a handful of events.
Yeah, Breacher Rush definitely feels like it's training wheels for Tau. You don't need it, but it can just win you games, and that is valuable.
Yeah, it's super valuable. It's also really greedy, I think, if you're playing right now and you don't have some form of forward deploy. Like I used to be the worst about this. I was
don't be a faction that doesn't have it.
Yeah, those aren't real anyway, so it's fine. So I used to be king greed with this. I had what I would call the pain siphon gambit, where like you would just be like, yeah, I don't have forward deploy, go ahead, put something in the middle, and then I would beat you up with pain engines. I don't do that anymore. I have mandrakes now. Like it's not a thing. Like you need it, you'll die. Like
God, I wish Tyranids had anything that could forward deploy.
Yeah, that sucks that they don't. But
we used to, and they took it away. Now we have to pay reinforcement points and 3 CP to get forward deploy from this spore field stratagem, and that's not a real option.
Yeah,
that's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to put that in your list now. You have to deduct like 75 to 150 points or something like that, and just put forward deploy in your list. Like you either have to, and it'll be important in Eldar too,
or be custodes who don't care.
Well, yeah, you can be
a little bit though, right?
Care as much.
They care a little bit, but they don't care enough that they're going to like run witch seekers for it.
Oh yeah, sure. That's not a thing that's going to happen.
You might want to when Eldar come out though, just a little bit,
right?
Like some of that juice that comes out. I know.
But isn't all the advanced support stuff just going to die to Shadow Weavers anyway? So who cares?
I'm really, really curious how the Eldar redeploy stratagem will work. Because if it works like the Ultramarine one, where you can take stuff out of the midboard, pull it back, that'll be super powerful, obviously, because you just take giant Scorpion units with their Phoenix Lord and just
my biggest hope that it's like the Granite one and it's core locked, at least.
Aspect Warriors are core,
but Phoenix Lords aren't.
Yeah, but Karandras isn't. Right, I see where he's going.
I see where
you could just like between the legs dunk all the buffs on the Scorps though, and just send them off to a merry mission.
Exactly.
And Alex makes a good point that Witch Seekers take up a fast attack slot, which is
super problematic. Yeah,
being held by bikes, which you want 3 squads of 3 of, and Emperor's Chosen. Anyway,
the Custodes really want to play Batat Battalion.
You want to talk about a crowded slot? The Custodes fast attack slot between Palace, Venatari, bikes is like there's so much good stuff there.
Yeah.
Unless bikes get more expensive in like a patch, though, I think we're not gonna see a lot of people move away from
rule. You want to see them squadron rule the bikes, dude.
Get out of here,
That is a suggested topic from our good friend Cliff, who cannot be with us this episode. That is why the visual flare is here. You didn't have Cliff, so I was like, okay, you can look at some dinosaurs.
We had to have something much better looking than the average member of this podcast, and so it's the hoodie today.
Yeah. There's always going to be one thing. It's Anthony's turn next week.
No. And I have to like make sure my tattoo is visible like the whole time or something. I don't know.
Just sit like this the whole session.
So let's do the fun one. How would we fix Tau and Custodes? Let's focus on Custodes because we're still slightly too early on calling whether we think Tau are truly broken or not. But we will touch on them. But how would you fix Custodes right now? What's your suggestions?
First bullet would be to make Trajan Valoris 200 points.
Okay.
Yeah, I have absolutely no objection to that.
No
I thought
argument
we
from
could
the
like
court.
take away 2/3 of his
Like-
rules and he'd still be good. But
I think like 200 points is probably a better spot. I think you could put him up to Morven Vault points, and people still probably wouldn't blink that much about it. But
I wouldn't.
I think they'd complain because they're used to 160.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't think Trajan should be 160 points with like 3 warlord traits essentially, because some of them are multiple. The ability,
Both of them are 2 bullet point
Yeah.
warlord traits,
Yeah,
and then he
and
has
then-
a 5 of Philippine on top of that.
and then always rerolling all of his hits from one of those warlord traits makes him a beat stick just in every situation. He provides 2 sets of buffs, both captain and lieutenant rerolls to custodes, and then also having moment shackle to fight twice is really
Or interrupt for
powerful in a
free,
character.
or just survive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a
And
customs player can interrupt 3 times in a turn.
Yep. And I think that's the easiest and probably least obnoxious first modification you can make to custodes at this point, is just making reversing all of their point cost changes and making Trajan more expensive.
You can leave Misericordias free for everything except Salutarum. I don't hate that. Like, fine.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
So
one
let
of the
the
things I
custom
hate the
players
most.
I hate it too as a Gene Circle player. I genuinely despise it. But, like, fine. I don't care. Just make the units 5 points more expensive. And
Just
build
make it
Misericordias
as
in.
part of their base cost. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The changes I like, so I want to see all of the stratagems that are defensive stuff just go up 1 at both point levels,
Mhm.
whatever they're used on. So they should also, turn off rerolls and transhuman and the and Tanglefoot is the other one. Should probably all go up 1 at both levels, and then so they should be 3 on squads of 4 or more. And I would maybe make the bikes just count, or maybe make the bikes just count as 2 models for that. So if you got 3 bikes, it's 3 CP.
Yep.
I would honestly not even hate that.
Mhm.
I don't want to put customs in the dumpster because I think they're a cool army, but there is genuinely stuff like that. I would probably move Emperor's Chosen to a 5-up, feel no pain against mortals instead of a 4-up.
Yeah, they're a 6-up natively, right?
6-up
Just from
natively,
custodes rules. I think a 5-up is probably reasonable. I
It's
just
just
imagine
the math
that
difference between a 6-up and a 4-up is a 4-up is 5
massive,
times
yeah.
better. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the thing that I think in my head is like, what kind of philosophical changes GW is most likely to do is like increase CP,
Points,
increase
yeah.
points costs,
Yeah.
maybe mess with keywords a little bit. So
But
maybe some
Lucius
stuff
changed when that
core.
was an AdMech thing. Like Lucius genuinely got ripped to bits. So I don't think it's
Mhm.
unreasonable to say that they could make changes like this. I would like to see Shadowkeepers also change to 2 attack. We just want to attack to minimum 2.
Yep.
I would like that because 2 attack models just suffer disproportionately against it, and it's horrible.
Yeah, that's rough.
Like you try to play in like demons or Gene Steel Call into them, like 2 attack models just do no damage. It is brutal.
Yeah. I would probably do both. I would bump all their defensive strats by 1. Like
All
you
their
were
points
saying.
cost up as well.
Yep. And put all their points back to what they were in basically at LVO.
Mhm.
And I think that combination, I would probably stop there.
Yeah, I think you could leave the sub-faction changes are kind of like I would like to see them for general health because they crush a few armies. But fine, like you can leave it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the extra attack from the
The
Mizzies
points in
is like
CP are too much right now.
yeah, the extra attack from the Mizzies just for free frustrates me at a level I can't even describe. Unless you want to start adding free chain swords to every marine body, then
Yeah.
Let's do that. That sounds fun.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I
part
mean-
of what I've seen recently is like plasma inceptors are 60 points, right? And a custodes terminator is also 60 points, and those two things are just like not the same.
It's a difficult point of comparison, but like because
Yeah.
like 2 blade guard is 70 points, and a custode is
Mhm.
60 points. Like I'd probably rather have 2 blade guard if the blade guard were object and counted as 12 models. But I don't know. Custodes just have so much layered stuff that it feels like you kind of have to pick apart a lot of it because everything is so synergistic for them.
Yeah, I just wish they weren't immortal for 4 turns. Like if you could turn that into being immortal for 1 or 2, or selectively immortal, I'd be okay with that. But I feel
Yeah.
like Vect is actually mandatory. I'm looking at building lists now, and I like don't want to get away from Blackheart because without Vect, I'm like that matchup is rough.
Yeah. Yeah, you basically have to put their CP at like what it should be if those stratagems were balanced, which is like a terrible position to need to be in when you're designing an army list.
Right. Yeah, I also don't think Trajan should give you a CP.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of a thing they've done now. Like most characters do that now. For
I have no
Imperium
way
side.
to get that in my
Imperium
army,
side.
sir.
Well, you get to run 3 patrols, so
Not until Vex Army of Renown comes out with Vex, right?
Yeah.
yeah, because it's just like Dante does it, Gulliman does it, Magnus Mortarian, Tallyman does it. Like, come on, I don't know. I don't feel like the CP is the egregious part. I feel like the CP and 5-up regen is a lot, but
Yeah, that's what
if they were balanced around it would be fine. I just think that those stratagems should be 3 CP stratagems broadly.
Yeah,
It's 3 CP for Grey Knights, infantry only to transhuman on squads of 6 models.
Yep.
I don't feel like that's. I feel like it's a little less egregious than using on 3 bikes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. It should be super expensive because getting the strength to win bikes on 3s is difficult as it is. Or getting the combination of buffs to get there is difficult.
Getting to win them on 2s, you should be rewarded for. That's the kind of thing you should be rewarded for against Custodes, not punished for.
Yeah. Yeah, you get there and they're like, nice, no. And it's like, okay.
I guess I just don't get to do things.
It's especially because they're reactive stratagems. If they were like command phase stratagems, even, which would be horrible nerf, but you would at least know you didn't have to use offensive stuff on them. But like for now, at the moment, you might have to burn CP to make them burn CP because you have to turn on your rerolls to get their rerolls off, that kind of stuff.
It could go to like start of the phase, like start of the fight.
Yeah,
phase,
start of shooting
auspice
would be okay.
It is definitely I've been caught by your trap card situation when I paid 2 CP for rerolls to wound, and then somebody's like, "Well, I'm going to pay 2 CP, then get 1 back to eliminate those
one
rerolls."
CP. Come on, it's not 2 CP.
Oh, is it 1? You're right. You're sorry. I apologize.
I'm saying it should be 3.
Yeah.
It's one CP to activate a trap card against your opponent, which
those kinds of stratagems should always be trading down on CP, not trading up, which is why Vect was a 4 CP stratagem.
Yeah,
when it was previous Vect.
I will frequently burn, like set on fire 2 CP early in a game to use a real wound strat on something that I know is going to get stopped so that I can Vect it before Draz goes. Like that is a common strategy in that matchup, which sucks. That feels so bad when I have to do that, but
you have to pay 2 CP to make your stratagem cost a reasonable amount.
I mean, to put it into perspective, a 73% win rate, I'm going to call it a 75% rate because it makes the math easier. You need to double the amount of games they lose to make them balanced.
Yep.
That requires drastic nerfs, and I just don't see that being the path GW take, which disappoints me. For now, build around it. Like people are finding ways to beat Custodes. Cheese Cults can do it. Tau can do it. Sisters apparently can do it. It's just tough.
Well, sisters have the good matchup into Tau.
Oh, sisters Custodes, Tau. My apologies.
Custodes only have the one bad matchup, and that's into GSC.
GSC themselves,
yeah. Well, they have a couple 50% matchups. If I go back to my faction view,
I mean, a 50% matchup into an army that with 74% win rate is doing twice as good as average. So I would consider that a good matchup. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they have a couple 60s and like a couple mid 50s, like their Tau matchup. But that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's rough, isn't
it? I unfortunately for all the Custodes fans out there, you guys are at the stages of grief right now where Drukhari players who didn't think that their faction was OP were at, where you're doing really well and you don't want to see your faction nerfed. And so you're in like the second stage of grief where you're trying to pretend that it's not really a big problem.
Alex, the defensive strats are the most feels bad part of fighting Custodes, other than the inherent fact that they are a 4 vulnerable save army, and 4 vulnerable save armies are always swingy. There has never been a 4 vulnerable save army that feels good to fight against when they're rolling 4-ups. That's not a balance problem. That's just a feels bad problem. The broken part or the unbalanced part of Custodes is probably points costs and the ease of access and use of the defensive stratagems. I think that is a very fair point. Their damage output is high, but I don't mind it being high if they die. It's the fact that they just kind of do their thing at you for 3 turns and eventually your back breaks before theirs does every time.
Yeah, you get hit with 2,000 points or near enough as makes no difference of Custodes. while you have 2,000 points and then 1,100 points and then 500 points of your
and by
army
the time
remaining.
you're at 500 points, they're out of CP, but they have 1,500 points left.
Yeah, or maybe they're not even out of CP. Maybe they have 3. Like,
yeah, maybe that still turn off something and interrupt. And it's turn because with 3 CP and custodes, for reference, you can do turn off rerolls, transhuman, and an interrupt for 1 CP if you're on an objective with 3 CP available. Gene Circle can do for damage output with 3 CP available with like a standard unit that doesn't have mining weapons.
Yep.
Not a thing.
yep.
The way they use CP is not aligned with the rest of the game right now. You should never be trading up with defensive stratagems. I just don't think that's a thing you should be doing with any faction.
Yep, I broadly agree with that. I think things should be dying. Like, I think the game's a lot more boring place. I mean,
things should be dying at a reasonable rate. Like, I don't think AdMech Leaf Floor was a fair and balanced thing either. Because
Tau.
Tau as well. We'll get on to Tau in a second. But I think Custodes you should have defensive options, but it should be like it stops, a 300 point unit killing your 250 points on bikes, not stopping 1,000 points on bike stuff killing your 250 points on bikes.
Right.
They should be dying to an army shooting. That is what they should be doing. You should be having to use terrain and defensive buffs like the banner and terrain around to give yourself advantages, not just getting your advantage for free because you showed up with 13 CP and 5 up regen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's move on to Tau.
So Tau, this is what I want to say about Tau first. Is we have just a couple weeks of data on Tau. So we're at kind of that phase where we were with Custodes, where we were like nervous, but we don't have enough data to really conclusively say that there's a problem. There are a couple matchups in the faction v faction data where there are factions that have an advantage into Tau, which is something that we don't see with Custodes. But that's currently, and that also includes some pre-Dex matchups. So it's not perfect. And part of the problem is just that some events still aren't running Tau's new rules. So this weekend will probably be the first where everything is Tau, including Cherokee, and Cherokee will provide us with a lot of data about the health of the meta overall.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy when Jakari.
There's also a big team event in the UK this weekend that should hopefully give us some data that way as well.
I will be honest that I open up team events and then I close them. It's not a personal thing. It's just a harder to, because of the way that team matchups work with you being able to pick your pairings, that they're a little bit harder to fit into the overall meta scheme. I'd love to actually talk to you more about that in us on the side, where we could actually talk about how to take some of that team matchup data and make something parsable. Like me and Curie, mostly Curie, have worked on making some point differential things and stuff like that and trying to figure out how that could be useful as like tools to look at those kinds of matchups. But we haven't really deeply looked. I don't think anybody's deeply looked into that data on like a large scale meta level. Nobody really even gathers the data. And that is definitely something that would be interesting, because I also actually think that team matchups are the most interesting form of 40K. Even though I am American and like there are almost no team events in the States, I think that teams is like a much better way and balances out a lot of the problems that we see in the meta, because teams can only take one Custodes player, one Tau player, and then they still have to find 3 other people, depending on how many players you have on your teams, like 3 other players.
And that's really hard when you're a Custodes or Tau player, because you don't have any friends. So
you've beaten 75% of your friends, and the other 25% are nervous they're next.
Yeah.
I kid. That's aimed at you specifically, Alex.
Brutal.
But yes, Tau have bad matchups into into Sisters, which I think is really interesting, and I think Sisters might be underrated, although I might also be biased because I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about how the Army of Renown is neat. Or not the Army of Renown, the new supplement rather is kind of
which
neat.
It is. Once it gets a couple of like fixes to make it work with Vol and Celestine without having to call it multi-detachment, I think it'll be genuinely quicker.
Yep. And then they have an okay matchup into Chaos. They have a 44% win rate there. Chaos is like a really confusing category though, because it includes some Space Marines or Death Guard or Thousand Suns blends with demons, and also some Army of Renown stuff with Be'lakor kind of gets jumbled into there.
There's probably people who are playing like Chaos Space Marines and like Chaos Knights and Summoning, which will mark as Chaos, stuff like that. So it's a very broad category that's very difficult to discern information from. Almost as bad as people who just mark the list as Imperium.
Yep, they have a 50-50 into Iron Hands at the moment, which is kind of interesting to me because in my mind, like there's so much more Tau shooting than there is Iron Hands shooting, though the Iron Hands shooting feels much more efficient.
Is it?
Is it though?
It's hard to get that. It's hard to get the pod into good Tau lists. That's the biggest problem. Like you just never get to deliver your damage output.
And I'm sorry to all of the Marines players out there, but I'm going to ignore the Raven Guard and the White Scars numbers for faction data.
Because there's like two of you combined.
Because there's Tau has like a 0% win rate into White Scars, but what does that mean? There's
I am choosing to believe that it's one hero who Master of Snares everything and lived.
I mean, there is that hero Harlequins player who gave 0% win rates to Custodes, Black Templars, Blood Angels, Mechanicus, Death Guard, Necrons, Salamanders.
Okay, so this is two Harlequins players.
Yeah, it's two Tau Empire and to White Scars. He gave a 0% win rate into the two of them gave 0% win rates into Harlequins for a bunch of factions.
Good.
And
good for you.
I personally just find that hilarious. It is the ultimate clowning on my statistics. Thank you.
Yeah. Remember, statistics like this do not work at small numbers. Frankly, even at the numbers we have, they are still unreliable, and you should not take these as gospel. We are working with very limited data. And for Brian in chat, we do not have a site with the matchup stats. Unfortunately, we are working off of, I believe, a spreadsheet. They are not publicly available one. You can check out 40kstats.com, which will have some 40k stats, obviously, given the name. But I don't know how up to date Peter is keeping that at the moment, unfortunately.
I think it's up to date through at least December, and I think Peter said that he was going to have it updated through February soon. He might not have it up to date at the moment. I think at some point, working with Cliff, we'll get the faction v faction data up and running online. Cliff, I think, posted a really cool visualization of it previously. That's based a lot off of ITC Battles app data, though. And so we're also BCP doesn't give us secondaries, but ITC Battles app, which has its own caveats, gives us a bunch of data on the secondary usage as well as matchups. But ITC Battles app is weird and is used kind of weirdly by the community as well. So a lot of people will kind of half enter data from their matchups. I've started
tracking all my games in it just so I can be part of the solution. Like I didn't for years, and now I am, and I have one loss now, and it's really upsetting me. So
you have to stare at it every time you open the app.
See, that's the kind of attitude I want, though, because ITC Battles app has much better data reporting and is much easier to get data from than BCP is. So
if you want to really support the show, you should go and use ITC Battles app. That is completely, you don't have to do any extra work other than doing your scoring on ITC Battles. You can be a massive help to the wonderful folks behind the scenes on the stats.
Yep.
Shall we wrap up the nerf? Are there any other factions right now that you think need to tweak downwards specifically? Because upwards, there's hundreds. I feel like it's in an okay place. Besides that, like, I still think Crusher might be a bit much, but into like the average. But other than that,
I feel like it's really easy to build tools in for Crusher. Like if Crusher's the best list in the game, there's a lot of stuff you can do within even a bad codex to figure that one out. The issue is definitely more the new kids on the block, because Crusher's just really good stratagem stapled to really bad data sheets for the most part. The new kids on the block where they have dope data sheets and dope stratagems and crazy other stuff, and they can build into denying you secondaries and blah 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 blah.
The one thing I will say, I think there's like two things I'd nerf in GSC right now. Like I think there's you should probably put Gene Stealers up. They're very good right now. I think I could see 15, maybe 16 on them being reasonable. And then also the industrial weapons I would put up to like 12 points just to make them really awkward. Like the two good ones, and then put the drill down like 2 points. So you've actually got some choice there. And then that's kind of it. Like I would maybe broadly leave GC, but I think Gene Stealers are kind of crowding the codex a little bit.
I think
other than that, I think they're pretty okay.
I don't mind Gene Stealers at 14 because they're like scary outside of Twisted Healer, but not that scary. Like they're pretty good. Like they're really good still.
Yeah,
but,
I don't mind them, but I think they are internally kind of.
That's fair.
Like as far as the rest of the codex goes, they do super. They kind of make the codex not care about core, because why would you bother with anything that core buffs when you can just play Gene Stealers other than the icon ward for like hand flamer stuff? It's weird. It's an odd codex.
Yep. The last
Okay.
thing that I'll say about stats before people like run away is that
We're
we're
lightning round
building.
still.
Yeah, we're building a cool breakdown of all three of kind of the performance levels of factions as well. So we're building a low, mid, and high win rate kind of brackets for everything. See, there's a 73% overall. If you look at just the midfield, which is for us people who didn't lose all of their games or win all of their games, essentially people who weren't in winning position. And so we'll talk about that later as we get more data for it. That's all I
Great.
want.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do on there because some of the preliminary
looks
data
super
we've had has
interesting.
been super cool.
Yep.
Okay, last but not least, we are going to do. I'm tentatively calling this not so lightning round, but that's based on the being called lightning round on the original Biff pod. We will probably come up with a better name for that. And if you have any suggestions, please do feel free to leave them. Either send one of us a message or put it in the lightning round section on the Best of Faction Discord. I am looking for it and missing it. There we go. So we have a few questions this week. We're going to run through these super quick. We've got about 10-15 minutes to run through questions, and then we'll be calling it, folks. Question number 1. Do you think kilts are an advantage in the team format? Absolutely. I have never, ever lost more than half my games wearing a kilt. So
Powerful.
it's actually not the kilt, it's the sporran, because you get to have all of your like Maelstrom cards. That's a dated reference in your little crotch pocket. It's much better than having to have them in your bag and losing them. There are plenty. So these are from Jason. Also, there are plenty of things in the world of Comp 40K to be annoyed about at any given time. What is your minor pet peeve that you won't let go of?
I definitely have several. But my minor pet
Pick
peeve
one.
is triangles and not triangle specifically, but the triangle attitude that you see in comp a lot, like triangles.
Okay, if you just keep saying this, then eventually Tyler will show up.
Yeah, so I'm trying to summon Tyler just so I can yell at him about it. But so the recent thing is with webway gates and the within 3 inches things and people wanting to set them up in funny orientations.
Basically, your pet peeve is people abusing spatial reasoning when the GW didn't think of.
Yes, so that is really my thing, is mining into weird situations. Like the orc gerrymandering thing was one of them. Or I like to call it orcymandering, and you guys can all take that and run away with it, I guess, if you want.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things are things that like give me a headache, but that's my personal pet peeve. Like I start twitching and it's just awful.
Anthony?
My least favorite thing is what I'll call the suddenly technical game. So when someone is like real loose, real cool, and like you're being pretty loose, or you're just doing your thing, you think everything's fine, you're playing how they're playing, and then like all of a sudden they realize they're down, and boy oh boy does the rules get real specific at that point.
Okay, I thought you were going to jump on something like sometimes you get into a point in a game, you're like, right, we need to actually do this combat properly, like doing pilots consolidations properly. That's different to what you were saying, and that's where my head went. I was like, I hope Anthony doesn't think that's a bad thing.
No, I'm totally happy to do it correctly, especially if like it's important. But I don't like when it's like, when
they're like, could you just check that in the codex? It's like something super obvious that everybody knows.
Yeah,
go just check it. Go just check it. Go just check it.
Draz hits on 2s. Like, no, well, does he? Can you check? It's like,
no.
Yeah.
It's a 2s. I actually surprisingly didn't have very many people ask. I didn't have a single person asked to look at my Gene Starcard Codex all weekend at my GT, which I'm shocked by.
That is an abuse of position of power as captain of the team.
Okay, my pet peeve, and I feel like people are going to expect me to say something about Orcs or Eldar here because obviously, nah, bro. My single pet peeve is Space Marine players who think they're special for playing a chapter and won't swap for any reason. If you say you are a Space Wolf player or a Blood Angels player, go F off. You are a Space Marine player, and you should respect the fact that you have 11 other sub-factions to choose from, and if yours isn't good right now, that's exactly the same as if Seiman is worse than BLTAN. Man the F up and go and play the other sub-faction. It's the same army. Grow up.
I don't know what you mean, dude. I'm a Blood Angel player all the way down.
That's exactly the same as me walking to the room and saying, I only play Rusted Claw.
Yeah, that's fine too.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Just Anthony just walks in and it's just like, wah, Innes. Wow.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. I can live with that. This bugs me. And basically, if you don't just put Adeptus Astartes as your faction in BCP, I hate you.
Please continue to put your factions in accurately and don't listen to Innis so that I can
Also,
break
yeah,
down the
people who
stats
like
correctly.
try to track it separately. You're the same faction, guys. Like, you're not a Space Marine player. You're playing Space Marine.
Oh,
It's all the Space Marine stats.
Excuse you, sir. Those have separate things
Exactly.
in the ITC.
I'm saying they shouldn't.
But they do. My internet
Why?
points, Innis. Come on.
It's like having a separate fucking category for frozen stars. Like,
Yeah, they should. Well,
We
actually,
might as well.
they can't.
I would prefer all the granularity possible in the data, so you can keep putting your stuff as what.
yeah. I'm gonna run for best in Obsidian Rose and Red Grief.
Man, I don't care if ITC gives out a best sub faction soup
I'm gonna be
list.
rank 1 poison.
I just want my stats to make sense when I put them all together.
Rank 1 Slanesh and Nurgle.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, let's move on. How is the non-USA centric 40k world reacting to the change in relationship between ITC and DW? It's not. Nothing has changed functionally. We're not expecting any big differences. I know the BCP thing, where you have to use BCP to submit ITC scores now, has caused a little bit of friction because we used a bunch of stuff over here in the UK and
that's
in
probably
Europe,
a little awkward.
which is it's a pain, but you can get around it. Like, you can just upload it to BCP after the fact. It's a lot of work for TOs, which I don't love.
I think they're
BCP
getting rid of that.
Are they? No,
Yeah.
you can add your event to BCP after the fact.
Oh yeah, theoretically.
Yeah,
you could
that's
go
a
in
lot
and
of
be
work,
like,
but
this
you can
person
do
beat
it.
this person by this many points.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can
that's
do
gonna
it.
be
It's
awful.
a pain in the
though.
backside. It's bad for TOs, and I don't like that.
Right.
Other than that, I don't really mind. Like, GW are already working with the ITC. Now it's official. Cool. There's prizes. Cool.
Nice.
You don't have to interact with it if you don't want to. The independent tournament scene isn't going anywhere. So,
Yep.
I realize that's more of a me question, but yes, Nathan.
Can we call Anthony the little gherkin? I just wanted. It's not even really a question. It's just more of a statement. In fact,
Yeah,
is when will Anthony accept the title of little gherkin?
So that
Now-
is because Seth knows my cat's name is Pickles, so he started just calling me Little Gherkin, and that is how that has transpired.
We have another question. Is Tower Crystals really as bad as they suggest, Seth? Please listen to the rest of the episode. We're not going to go into that again.
Probably yes.
Probably yes, though.
Just
From
bullying
Pierce,
Seth.
what are the advantages of single expensive models like the Incarn avatars or Primarchs? Why not just take more models for lower cost? Because they hit real hard, and they are single things that are easy to hide and deliver in some situations.
Yeah, they represent a different damage profile usually. Often, like, one of the best things in the game is to just throw damage one at someone in 80 dice quantities, but there's something to be said for not doing that and just slamming 8 attacks in there that hit with the fury of the sun.
There's also the aspect of degrading is not dying.
Yeah.
You lose 5 Incubi out of a score of 10. You have 5 Incubi attack. You lose half your wounds off of the Avatar. He is still the Avatar. You
Yeah,
still have to. He still hits pretty hard.
Yeah.
This does not apply to like 9th edition Tyranid monsters or 8th edition Tyranid monsters who degrade like hell, or Bloodthirsters who have the worst degrading profile of anything I've ever seen, losing weapon skill, attacks, and strength. 2 attacks at every bracketing stage, by the way. Bloodthirsters drop from 6 attacks that hit on 2s to 2 attacks that hit on 4s. Yeah.
Disrespectful, honestly.
So that's why you don't take. That's why you don't take them. They're also generally they take buffs really well. If you can do things like Be'lakor, you can stack things like double fight on him and get a lot of value out of it without being able to take much damage in return. And they look really cool, which is not a real answer, but
yeah. Sometimes people want to win Renman, and those centerpiece models are the route.
Yep.
Is Tau or Custodes the hammer in the meta of nails?
I hate you for asking this question. Just honestly, like, that was a bad post.
It's Custodes, though, right?
Oh. Get out of here, Innis.
It is Custodes. They're great.
You
now.
think 20-0 is a better system than win-loss? I think they're different systems that both have advantages and disadvantages. Win-loss is probably better for things like Street Super Mages, where you have like 9 rounds to find your joint defeated. But 20-0 has a lot of fun in small tournaments where you always have something to play for. It works really well for bigger events where you might not have a true undefeated, but you do have additional granularity. They do different things.
I just wanted to pull one out of YouTube chat. Is our guard a nail in a meta full of hammers? And I'm like, yes, that's actually true. That is the situation. It's lore. It also fits with
I
their
think
lore.
guard are actually the board of wood that things are being pounded into because they're still taking damage from the things getting pounded.
There we go. Oh, I don't know. I also think my favorite meme though of like the last week is also guard centric, where it's like the guards say that Cadia the planet broke before the guard did, and then people are like, but the CSM's cost went up before their wounds did.
Yeah.
Is my
now,
favorite meme.
now, let's not forget though, I would rather have 12-point Chaos Space Marines in my Space Marine Codex than any of the Space Marine troops. So
that's a hot take.
Don't count your chickens.
But you have to have Chaos Space Marine rules then. Like you don't get.
If I could just take Chaos Space Marines and put them like not breaking into the rules for anything else, but just take 3 squads of Chaos Space Marines for 180 points, I'd do that in a heartbeat.
But without like no doctrines.
With them not getting doctrines, sure.
No.
I mean, like they would be Space Marine units for like all the purposes.
Oh, okay.
But like if I could have 12-point troops,
I see how this is working now too, Anthony.
Yeah.
If I could have things that were way better than my current things, I'd do it.
Yeah.
Me too, Innes.
Really good things that would cost less.
That's what I'm saying. Is that if you had the option of taking tactical Marines at 1 wound and 12 points, I would do that over every single current Space Marine troop choice.
Gotcha.
Okay, I understand your answer to this question.
You just want scouts back, is what you
Very
just
basically,
said.
yeah. I think scouts should have the cultist rule where you can take 1 per regular squad.
Yeah.
Okay. Are GSC broken? No, but they're powerful in the right hands. How do you rate?
I think GSC are the best example of high ceiling, low floor army.
I think that's fair.
I feel like they have a high floor. Maybe we're thinking about this different ways.
Floor is like
accessibility is how I look at floor.
Yeah.
It's like it's hard to get into.
That's different. Yeah, a floor is like like performance floor.
Oh yeah, okay.
I think GSC and Tau are both really good examples of armies that should never be S tier because their mechanics just fundamentally don't work when they're strong.
Yeah, if they're too
I think Knights are the other one that goes in that category.
I think Custodes go in there too.
Yeah, Custodes do. I think those 4 armies are super polarizing.
The
game is better when something like Marines is the best army. Not like by a lot, but when Marines are the best army, it's because they do a lot of things fairly.
Yeah.
Mostly. Not always. Sure. Like, we've definitely had exceptions. But yeah, I don't think GSC should ever be the best army in the game, and I think it's good that they're not, but that you can still win with them if you're competent.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. After playing Tau this weekend at an event, what advice would you give to players in order to handle or try beating them on missions if they can't beat them head on? Keep trying. Wait.
More reps. Put screening units in. Try to figure out how to tag things with combat. I don't know.
Tagging them doesn't help because they shoot in combat.
It makes them shoot the thing that's touched them though, rather than.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You just have to like play around their threat ranges and bring long threat range stuff that can deal with them, and have a plan for indirect. I don't know if that's possible for every faction, unfortunately. You can also just try hitting them real hard with fast stuff. It will work sometimes.
I'm gonna try.
Are you looking forward to the new elf overlords heading our way? No.
Yes. I mean, I'm hyped. I'm also going to say again this week that the community is terrible at predicting power level of codexes. Like, look where Custodes are, and look where Custodes were before they came out. The Custodes community was very depressed during previews.
They could not have complained more. It befit their status.
They could have been Eldar players. Eldar players have complained more.
Not in my experience.
Not in mine either.
I am looking forward to the Eldar release for one reason. Eldar players will shut up about getting new rules because
never.
Oh my god, it's been so long.
I won't have anything to say. That's true.
They say knowing is half the battle. What is the other half? Incredible violence.
Obviously, incredible violence. Yeah.
How do you feel about some Scottish dude winning an event despite dropping a game to the person who came second? In all honesty, it does feel weird to have effectively lost second place and still come first, so you don't mind. I don't mind. Why would I mind?
Yeah, he doesn't care. It probably feels weird for the guy in second.
No, I spoke to Brian about it. He was cool with it. We all signed up going into the 20th tournament. It's only people online that are weird about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think there's anything weird about it. I mean,
I like this guy.
I mean, it's the tournament rules. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And finally, from Bobby, aka the RPG Luminary, do you think it's necessary to run 2 Patriarchs to have a strong GSC list currently? I didn't run 2 Patriarchs and I won a GT, kind of. So, no, I don't think so. I think you can run 2. I don't think you have to. I think they're very strong in Trusted Helix. I think they're kind of met outside of it. And that's kind of it. But you definitely can run 2, but you don't have to. You can run single battalion. You can run double patrol without Patriarchs at all. Go nuts. There's a lot of unexplored design space in Gene Circle at the moment. Be the change. I feel really good about every faction that's not Town and Custodes right now. Like, that has a 9th edition codex. Like, they have options, except Death Guard. Death Guard are in a hole. But, like, we saw Mechanicus Defense Cohort get a top 4 this weekend. We saw Skitarii Veteran Cohort. We've seen Thousand Sons doing reasonably well. Sisters have a positive win rate into Tau.
I feel like Thousand Sons are a little sleeper right now if they can figure out like if the Custodes leveling happens sooner rather than later.
Drukhari are finally at a roughly balanced win rate. I don't think about 50% is a bad place for Drukhari to be at all. I know it feels weird for them, but there's a lot of Drukhari players with a lot of experience that have got a lot of power to draw on. And once the things that just like flatten them without giving them a chance, which is nice to see happening to Drukhari instead. Marines are probably getting a new codex soon, so that's fine. Yeah, I don't feel too bad about the game. It's like, other than the 2 factions, I think the game's in the right place right now.
Another thing to consider with the Drukhari win rate stuff too is that a lot of the more experienced Drukhari folks have not been playing them in the last couple of weeks. I haven't played an event in like 3 weeks. Sean hasn't played in a while. A lot of the other people what'd you say?
Managed swap factions.
Yeah, a lot of the other people that were doing well with them played other things. So who knows? Maybe it's better than it looks for the Drukes. Or maybe I'll go 3-3 this weekend. Who knows? But
let's do that as a final question then before we do our sign off. Anthony, what's your prediction for the weekend? How are you going to go?
I think that if everything goes like to averages and like things work out and I don't get like randomly like some stuff doesn't just get crazy, I think a 5-1 is super reasonable and achievable. I wouldn't be too upset at a 4-2 if there was like some screwy nonsense, but it's player placed against Tau on some fairly dated at this point terrain from Frontline.
And you're playing your new version of like Crops and Court and stuff like that, right? Yeah,
I'm playing good stuff Drukhari essentially. It's 2 Raiders, 2 Venoms, and then like some Grots and the assorted various things that are good stuff Drukhari. But yeah, I think 5-1 is like definitely within reach. I expect to lose a later game round realistically to some combination of Custodes or Tau or one of those 2. I definitely see it like I think this new list that I'm playing right now is actually generally better into Custodes, but it can't like Thick City could sustain a turn where they were like, oh, I passed all my 4s, and then like Thick City would be okay. This list can't do that. Like if my go turn slips and misses, I lose. Like there's no, and it's not. I know that sounds like very reactionary, but like that's
what a Drukhari good stuff list should be doing, right?
Yeah.
If you go for a go turn, there's a go for broke, and it doesn't work, that's on you, right? And the fact that Custodes are good at setting it up right now is just part of the meta.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to win that matchup, because if you nickel and dime them and you try and hit the edges, they're just going to use their strats, and your goes in that sense will be inefficient anyway, and you will have not gotten anything for it except death. So I think that the play is to set it up in a bunch of places and just drop the hammer.
Well, we are all rooting for you because it makes our job way easier when you are the one that won the tournament. So I don't have to research your list.
Yes.
But I'll read the show notes, so I'll know what it was.
Yeah, that's true. Why read the show notes when everyone else does?
It's very true. Yeah. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Anyway, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. This was part 2 of 40k Fight Club Flat Earth Meta. If you liked what you heard and you want to be able to keep hearing it, please do be sure to check out the Patreon. That is patreon.com/bestintabletop. $10 a month gets you access to the Patreon Discord, and I assume it will in some way be tied into the subscriber access to the second half of the show. This is what will be going behind the paywall. So if you liked it and you want to hear it and keep sticking around, that is what you need to do. Otherwise, chuck a like, chuck a subscribe on the video, on the YouTube page. That is Best in Tabletop. And we would love to see you back here next week, same time, same place. We'll be talking about a few events. We've got the Cherokee. We've got the ITT is next weekend as well. And I'm sure there'll be a random smattering of GTs as well. ITT being the International Team Tournament in Coventry, somewhere in England. We're not going. I'm confused. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. I have been Innes. Thank you very much, as always, to Anthony and Nathan for joining me. Have a good one, guys.
Bye-bye.